This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Very good evening. It is Wednesday, 3rd of November. Time for... I've got the tune for this. Just hold on. That's not the one I want. Hold on. I'll probably get in trouble for playing that. I reckon Wilby will report me to whoever owns the Muppet Show. A very good evening. I am going to play the council meeting. This is just a place we're hosting, so you can all chat to each other. If there's anything you want to ask me, just fire it up, and I'll probably try and type my answers and not get involved in interrupting what's going on. So let's find out what happens. I'll transfer it across when it starts, and yeah, we'll see what happens. I need to press this. Yeah, so it'll start and I'll go onto the full screen once it starts. So we'll see how it goes. People are having their tea. I had a Kit Kat. I've got some pizza left over from the other night, so I will have my pizza once this thing's finished. Yes, Denise, new hat. I've got a new hat. I've been delivering all day. I was helping a friend out in town who was selling gin to hipster bars, and I was a sidekick who sat by the van. Okay, something went wrong. Tap to retry. What's going on here? Oh, it's not us, it's them. If this link doesn't work, I'm sure someone will send me a link and I will... Wasn't that funny? So a person who came up with this, who found it, I was chatting to my friend Oldham last night, wasn't I, mate? And you said, have you noticed something? Have I got it right? And I went on and he did have it right. They'd hidden council meetings. They'd hidden them. And the ones they'd hidden, well, you can imagine, can't you? The ones they'd hidden. They were, yeah. The ones were Sean Fielding claimed barefaced lies. And they were also the ones where AROOJ Shah got up and declared her loyalty to Irish Imi, followed by crocodile tears, lying about what I was meant to have said about her, which clearly wasn't the case. Here they come. Let's get it across, and I will chat to you later. Got no sound yet, so I'm hoping it's not me and it's this thing.
Can I invite
Here we
my
go.
chaplain, the Reverend Jean Hurlston, to say prayers? Thank you, Jean.
I appreciate that not all of you embrace the tradition of holding prayers at the start of what some may see as a secular event. For those of you who do have a faith or belief, I trust that the following prayer will feel inclusive. For those of you who do not identify with a faith or belief, please stand back and consider this time as a reflective moment when you can prepare mindfully for your council session. And so now, let us pray or contemplate. O God, we meet today in a spirit of cooperation and love for the people of Oldham, to conduct matters of business and development, so to enhance the well-being of people living in our wards. May our hearts and minds be grounded in fairness, in truth, in openness, and in kindness of speech, respecting one another, often opposing views, whilst remembering that we are each called to serve in our own unique way. Let us be mindful of our shared objective to provide a better life for all people living and working in this borough. In all things, all these things, we pray and seek for both wisdom and discernment. Amen.
They may do. May I remind members and members of the public that the meeting will be streamed live on a webcast from the Council's website. Please be seated. We start the meeting with apologies. I've received apologies from Councillors Abbott, Hume, Leach and Clint Bithian. Are there any to add? Does anybody know of any names to add to the apologies? Okay, thank you. Item 2, the minutes. Is Council agreed that the Council minutes from the meetings held on the 8th of September 21 be agreed as a correct record? Do we all agree? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from the members in respect of matters to be determined by the Council at this meeting? Councillors Chris Gloucester and Hazel Gloucester have a personal interest, and Councillor Gary has a pecuniary interest at item 10D by virtue of employment with Greater Manchester Police. Can members declare any matters to the meeting? Councillor Sejan.
Agenda number 13, pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlet.
Would like to declare my interest in myocare, please.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody? It's difficult to say. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. That was Councillor Chowan.
Board member myocare.
Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Steve Bashforth.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I wasn't sure I'd need to do it, but I'll declare an interest in myocare as well. Thank you.
Have I missed anybody? So, yeah. That's everybody. Thank you. Item 4, urgent business. We haven't received any. Item 5, communications. Members will be aware of the death of Sir David Amos following a knife attack during a surgery at his constituency in Leigh-on-Sea. Can I ask all members to hold a minute's silence in memory of Sir David? Can we stand, please?
It wasn't his death. He was murdered in a terrorist attack. It wasn't a death.
Thank you. Item 6, Greater Manchester Policing Plan. It's my pleasure to welcome Chief Superintendent Chris Bowen, who's going to address Council. Superintendent Bowen, please.
Yes, good evening everybody. I hope you don't mind if I stand. I just find it a lot easier when I'm speaking to everybody. So firstly, thank you very, very much for this opportunity to come and speak to you all today. I look out in front of me at hundreds of years of public service serving the communities of Oldham, and I feel a bit of a fraud having been here for 5 weeks, standing here to try and explain what my plans are for the future of policing in this fine borough.
Desperate
so,
police officer.
I could spend my 10 minutes talking about the issues that Greater Manchester Police have had over the last few years, but I don't think there's much to be gained in that, if I'm honest with you. The issues are well documented. They're not for me to comment on. They've been well documented in the media, and the new Chief Constable has spoken publicly about those on numerous occasions. I think, and I trust that you're with me, you're more interested in what the future holds, what the future's going to bring to the communities of Oldham, and what I'm going to try and do to help. Well, firstly, I just want everybody to know that the answers are here in Oldham.
Police force.
I have not come down the M62 corridor with a cape on, wearing underpants outside my trousers, with a book entitled How to Solve the Problems of Greater Manchester Police. There is no such book. But what I do have, and what I did find when I landed here, what seems like ages ago, but in reality 4.5 weeks ago, is a passionate workforce that wants to make a difference to the communities of Greater Manchester.
Record numbers want to leave.
A passionate workforce that hasn't necessarily known which direction to pull in, and a passionate workforce that wants to serve the community.
Record numbers.
My job as the new district commander is to try and get all of that positive energy, all of that enthusiasm to pull in the same direction, to pull on the same piece of rope in the same direction, to fulfill that latent potential that Mr. Watson talks about within Oldham, to try and make things better. Now, I've only got 10 minutes. I could talk for hours, and some people have already had the misfortune of listening to me for that length of time already. But I've only got 10 minutes today. So what I want to do is I want to deliver to you the 5 promises that Greater Manchester Police are going to make to the people of Greater Manchester, and then try and articulate a little bit about how we're going to deliver that in Oldham. And I hopefully can do that in the time that I've got available. So firstly, we're going to respond to incidents and emergencies. Now, you'd think that's really straightforward. We should be doing that anyway, and I would 100% agree with you. But the statistics will show we haven't been doing that very well.
And he covered it up.
It's documented.
Covered it up.
So my job is to try and improve that, to improve it from the outset. So one of the first things I've done is to try and drive that forward with a clear plan with my officers. And you'll be pleased to know that when I arrived in Oldham just 4.5 weeks ago, we were averaging about 270 to 280 outstanding logs waiting for service. Some of those were already attended, but we were still working on, but they were there. This morning, we're down to 170. So we've already taken 110 off that list. Now, those jobs are new jobs every day, so if people go and then new ones come in. So we've got to keep up that momentum. And I have told my team that that number needs to be under 100, and it needs to be consistently under 100 to make sure that we're giving prompt and effective service to the communities of Oldham from the outset when they ring us in their hour of need.
Liar.
Believe it or not, one of the other promises that Mr. Watson has given, and I'm fully behind, is we're going to investigate and solve crime. Now, again, something you'd expect would be a standard thing for the police, is to investigate and solve crime. But it's easier said than done. We have a huge amount of backlog that we are working through. When I arrived in Oldham, there was 6,800 open crimes being investigated by the police of Oldham. You'll be pleased to know that as of this morning, that's already down to 5,500. Again, clear strides going forward. But we're not just closing that crime, we're investigating that crime.
Down to 5,500.
Every crime gets a proportionate investigation, something which didn't happen. And,
how many of the 500 did he solve?
So it's really important to me that we follow every lead to the best of our abilities. So that's promise number 2. Now, if we can do that, what we can do is we can prevent, reduce crime, reduce harm, and reduce antisocial behaviour. So that's the 3rd promise. So how are we going to do that? Well, by controlling the demand at the beginning, by dealing with the logs properly, by taking effective measures, by arresting people who commit crime, we free up time, because people who've been arrested and perhaps go to prison or have sentences or go into rehabilitation or work with the various partners that are sat around the table represented do not continue to commit crime. That drives down demand. When we can drive down demand, our service gets better at the front end. And what it also does is it frees our neighbourhood policing teams up to do neighbourhood policing, to work with the partners and to work with you as councillors to try and make sure that the solutions in place for your area are suitable for your area, because every area is different.
Bent coppers,
and again,
bent
I want
politicians.
to share a figure with you to show that we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to solve crime. We're trying to push crime out of our communities. And I can tell you that in October, there was 235 people arrested within Oldham. Now, if you to compare that with October 2020, there was 122. Okay, and October 2021 was the month when the most arrests happened in Oldham in the last 2 years. Now, I'm not saying arrest is the only solution to crime. However, when everything else has failed, it is one of the few options that we have left to protect our communities. And my primary role as District Commander of Oldham is to protect my communities. So I make no apologies for going after
Andy.
those people who
You're not
spoil
going
the
after
lives of
anyone.
our communities on a daily basis.
Where's AROOJ Shah's
So
car
what we're going to do
firebombing?
next? Well, the
Why
next
aren't
promise
you
we're going to give you is
investigating?
we're going to deliver outstanding service. Now, outstanding service is what's really important to me. My staff ask me, what does that mean? What does outstanding service mean? How can you measure it? What's tangible? I say, quite simply, a service that you would be happy for your mum and dad to receive. If you leave that house knowing that if a GMP officer went to your mum and dad and gave them that level of service and they rang you up later on that evening to tell you what had happened and you would be happy, that is outstanding service, because we all want outstanding service for our families and our friends, and we should be giving that to every member of the Oldham community, and that is non-negotiable.
But you're not, are you, you bent coppers?
And then the final promise
you're
is
not.
We're going to build back that public trust and confidence.
So you're agreeing
But in
you're
order
bent.
to do that, I need to prove to you that I can deliver those first 4 promises.
Well, arrest some
because
bent
at
politicians.
the moment, I'm just the new bloke.
You're
I'm
a
the bloke that's
bent
come over
copper.
from West Yorkshire,
Bent.
found what Oldham was, which I was quite
Bent.
impressed with, having only been here previously once in 1994 to watch a game at Boundary Park when the Mountie Latics were in the
here we
Premier
are.
League, believe it or not.
It's 10
Now,
minutes
some
is
of you will
talking
remember
bollocks.
that far back when Joe Royal was the manager. And I must admit, until I arrived here on the 4th of October, that was the first time that I have been to Oldham. But believe it or not, within 4.5 weeks, just talking to the team that I work with, talking to the partners that are here working together, and talking to people in the community, I almost already feel like a bit of an honorary Oldham person.
Do you,
Now, whether
bugger?
there's a proper title for that, I'm not sure. And whether you believe that I deserve that credit bestowed on me will come in time. But what I need to do to you is prove to you that I can deliver those first 4 promises in order to gain the 5th promise that I believe is what we're after. Now, that has been a whistle-stop tour. A whistle-stop tour of the policing plan for Oldham.
That is a tour of the policing plan. That is a tour of the policing plan.
You'll be pleased to know that keeping our victims up to date in investigations is something that is monitored. We have gone from the worst district in Greater Manchester Police to the best district in Greater Manchester Police in the space of the last 3 months. And we're now showing an 81% compliance rate. We're keeping our victims up to date. It's still not good enough, because 100% is what we need. But 81% is a lot better than the 30% it was at when we started. Our standards of investigation have now reached 84%. 84% is the highest standard of investigation in Greater Manchester Police, and that is being delivered consistently now in Oldham. So I hope that this short introduction today is just giving you a little bit of reassurance that we're not just talking the talk.
You can't even talk the talk. You can't even
as we go on a
talk the
journey
talk.
over the coming months and years, it is truly my ambition to make Oldham the safest place to live and work in Greater Manchester Police. So thank you very much for listening to that brief introduction. I'm sure I'll get to meet loads of you over the coming months. And I believe I now am going to take a few questions under the direction of the Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yes,
He is
Indeed you are.
bollocks.
Can I call on group leaders to ask a question? Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can my mate hear me?
And thank you. I think you can be seated now, really. Yeah. So I think it's really important for me to acknowledge that I have met the Chief Constable, both individually and at the combined authority. And after hearing him and hearing you today, I'm absolutely reassured that you're both committed to improving GMP across the whole region. But as you referenced, the central issue to GMP is a loss of confidence. And whilst I'm personally reassured that you're both committed to driving that confidence and making sure that the force responds to residents' needs as and when they arise, would you possibly be able to outline briefly how you envisage doing that to build that trust back within our communities? Thank you.
Yes, well,
the bent.
those four first promises are what will deliver the fifth one, which is to build that trust and confidence back up. We've got to prove to the people that actually the proof is in the pudding. We don't just say we're going to come to the jobs when we say we actually show up. We don't just say we're going to investigate crime, we actually do it. We don't just say we're going to solve more, we actually solve more. And all of those statistics will be available over the coming months. I've started giving you a couple of the little snapshots there. Now, clearly I've come in with some there that I think articulate some of the work that we've already started. But we've got a long way to go. We've got a long journey to go. But I am confident that working with the partners in the area, the Community Safety Partnership, the Safeguarding Partnership, yourselves as councillors,
he's talking bollocks.
We can make sure that message gets out there. And I reassure you that when we do have issues brought to our attention, that they are taken seriously.
Why aren't you arresting the bent councillors? Why aren't you arresting the bent councillors?
I have to make sure that we learn from that to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, and we're going to do everything we can to support you.
It's like bullshit. Oh, you're going to send him around. She's going to send him around with a mocktail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my great pleasure to congratulate and welcome you, Chris, to this new post as District Commander in Oldham.
We know who for.
I'm sure you know the difficulties and concerns that we all face daily and the nature of serious crime which is happening in this borough and in many cities around the country. Many years ago as a child, I would quiver in my boots on seeing a policeman on the street. This was not through any guilt, but from the respect we were taught as children. The respect has been eroded over the years.
I think we know the answer to that.
And I feel there is still a lack of respect in our communities, not only to each other, but to the services, which are the police, fire, ambulance, who are there, after all, to help us all out.
He needs to get a backbone, this lad, doesn't he?
Council,
he absolutely lacks a backbone.
Shah will offer our full support to you and our sincere wishes that you will make great improvements to the policing in this town.
Does he heck? Does he heck?
I found it very reassuring that it's going to be one of the safest places to live.
Reassuring.
Welcome to Oldham.
Thank you very much for your
kind
words.
So what was the question?
I hope I don't let you down. And it's
where
an
was the question?
And an honour to
where was the question by the Conservative? Where was the question by the Conservative?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No question whatsoever.
Welcome.
Disgraceful. Graham Sheldon, disgraceful.
That's great to hear. I would like, obviously, to welcome you, your address to full council, and I hope that this becomes a regular event and isn't just another, apologize me for being cynical, police sort of flash in the pan initiative that is once done and never repeated. As elected members, we're always keen to receive police updates and to have the opportunity to ask questions of senior officers as part of our wish to fight crime in partnership and to raise concerns from our constituents. Now, if we go back 20 years to 2001 and the Oldham riots, born from that was township policing, the predecessor of neighbourhood policing. Each ward had its own dedicated community beat officer, 2 police community support officers with response policing dealing with daily calls. The community beat officers and police community support officers worked in partnership with the public, ward councillors, council officers, other professionals across a range of health, housing, social care and mental health agencies to deliver true community policing and to keep our communities safe and, just as important, feeling safe. That was the solution then, and it worked, but it is sadly lacking now in its current form. It has been eroded and eroded to make up for staffing and financial shortfalls to the extent there is now very little community focus and levels of engagement with councillors, the community and others are but a shadow of what it was. The result is less confidence. The people, regardless of the data, feel less safe and less confident in the communities in which they live. The public want reassurance of seeing uniformed police officers and police community support officers as a visible presence on their streets and in their communities. I know that we as elected members and many of our constituents want also to support the police in the fight against crime. So how do you think we can return to this effective and visible method of policing to bring back public confidence in Greater Manchester Police within our Oldham Borough? And more specifically, could you tell me what 3 things in local policing will have visibly improved for our residents in 12 months' time?
At least as criticism. And
well, I'll try and pick out the bits from the question there. So, first things first, I am passionate about neighbourhood policing. It's my background. I was the neighbourhood inspector in Inner South in Leeds. I was the neighbourhood chief inspector in North East Leeds before I came over here. And if you go far enough back, I was the community beat officer for Beeston and Holbeck under the single regeneration budget 4th round in the year 2000 to 2002. So if you cut me in half, it says neighbourhood policing. So I truly believe in its benefit. Policing at the heart of its community, understanding its community and working with the people in its community is the future. Now, from a GMP perspective, you are dead right that as the pressures have come on the frontline policing, the neighbourhood policing has eroded and it's been used almost as a secondary response function. That is something that the Chief and I are both committed to change. We are undergoing currently a neighbourhood policing review which will outline the exact kind of new structures that we will work to within that. But it will be also in line with ensuring that every area does have a named police officer. Now, I will more than happily, to avoid this being the flash in the pan and the new boy just coming to town, come back and detail that
He's not
plan
even
to you
answered
as
the
soon
question.
as it's fully known.
He's not even answered the question. So that is a force-led plan which we will then adopt to be suitable for Oldham. But the key things that I want to do in order to try and come back with the 3 things that you want. The first thing is, I have to find a way to get to our victims in their hour of need quickly. Okay? Respond appropriately within the grades and make sure we deal with it properly. That's part number 1. By doing that, I then free up my neighbourhood policing teams to do true problem-solving policing. True problem-solving policing involves working with partners, elected members, members of the community to make lasting solutions and It's
not just move the problem down the road.
It's
so
just bullshit
I need to make sure we do that. And by doing that, that'll increase the visibility of neighbourhood policing in the areas concerned. So they're the 3 things. But I'm going to be realistic and I'm going to manage people's expectations. I don't think I can do that by Monday. I'm going to need time. I've got to turn round a culture in an organisation. I've got to make significant changes to free up the resource to be able to deliver the bits that you've articulated that I want as much as you. So all I would ask is, give me the opportunity to embed the new policies and the procedures. Give me the opportunity to see what the force-led review brings. I'll come and articulate that to you or any subgroups that you deem appropriate. And then let's see that the proof is in the pudding. And I will happily come back whenever full council wants for an update to give you an update on the plan going forward. And that's a genuine, open offer. All you've got to do is ask, and I will come back and tell you where we are and what the state of play is, to hopefully negate that concern that the new boy's going to come in and then go and hide in a cupboard for the next 3 years until he leaves and somebody else comes to talk to you. So hopefully that will give you a degree of reassurance.
He is just talking bollocks.
Councillor
Empty
Hogan,
promises,
please, your question.
Bollocks.
More of a statement. I'd like to welcome you as well, Chief Superintendent, sat over here in the back, in the cheap seats at the back. Welcome to Oldham. Your enthusiasm and your passion shone out while you were stood up there addressing us, and I just hope that working together we can keep that enthusiasm going and extend an invite for you to come down to the district, my district, and have a chat and see what the areas are really like. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. And you tend to find that I wake up like this, I go to sleep like this, which is really hard work for anybody who's around me for too long. But I promise I will keep this level of enthusiasm going, even if it does wear myself out, because I'm genuinely committed to trying to make things better here in Oldham.
Thank you.
He's doing a lot of bum licking, isn't he? He's doing a lot of bum licking.
Bowen for attending tonight and for answering questions and our comments. Thank you very much.
Poor attempt at a PR
we move
exercise.
on to item 7, petitions, and there are none to note. Item 8, Leader's annual statement. I call on the Leader, Councillor Shah, to present the leader's annual statement.
Oh, ready
Thank
for
you,
this.
Councillor
Get ready
Shah.
for this bullshit. You'll love this. Her annual statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Blah, blah. Blah, blah,
All right,
blah.
okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My annual report is a chance for me to reflect on what has been an eventful few months since May's election.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's an opportunity to outline to you exactly what me, my administration, and the wider council have been focusing on since the election. On the great deal that we've already achieved, but also what we still have to do in the next coming months. When I became leader back in May, I set out a clear set of priorities. A set of priorities based on the things that local people told us. On the doorstep, in meetings and surgeries, through emails and phone calls, and if we're to be brutally honest, also at the ballot box in some places. Those priorities were firstly, getting back to basics by investing in cleaning up our streets, taking action on littering and fly tipping, and restoring a sense of pride in our neighbourhoods. Secondly, to steer the town's economic recovery from the impact of the pandemic, supporting local businesses, creating jobs and attracting investment and funding.
Creating jobs, attracting investment and funding.
Madam Mayor, was and is the delivery of key regeneration schemes, both in our town centre and elsewhere. Thirdly, we pledged to reconnect with local people, to acknowledge that many residents feel distant from the decisions we make about their area and from how their local services are run, and to do something to put that right. And lastly, as with every Labour administration, we pledge to continue to support the most vulnerable in our communities and to drive out inequality and unfairness wherever that may exist.
It's the ones with the sack full of postal votes.
To help us meet those ambitions quickly and with a sense of real purpose, we welcomed a new chief executive to lead the council.
Why did the last one leave?
In August, alongside a cross-party group of councillors,
Is it true she refused to work with you?
We recruited Harry Catherall.
Is it true because of your
Having only been
dodgy
here for a few weeks,
mobster
Harry has already
relationships?
made a real difference to the culture and approach in this organisation. He shares my passion for putting residents at the centre of everything we do and for providing great quality local services. And he is already working to drive that culture through every council service and through every council employee.
Bollocks.
We are incredibly lucky to have you, Harry. So thank you what you've already done for Oldham and for the amazing things that you're going to continue to achieve for our local people.
What is this nonsense?
We cannot fail to acknowledge the scale of the challenges that Oldham and its people currently face. Nor can we fail to outline the job on our hands as elected members to address these challenges. After a difficult 18 months, where many local people
she can't even read off a script.
On
She
their
can't
jobs
even
and their
read off a
wages,
script.
as well as their health, we are now at a place
Thank
where
you.
rising costs for basic necessities like food and fuel are pushing more and more people into poverty.
What about shisha?
The recent cut to universal credit has simply served to push people further and further towards financial crisis. Our incredibly amazing young people have seen their education significantly disrupted by the pandemic, and worryingly, have seen it much more disrupted than other areas of the country.
What nonsense is
Our
that?
public services have been stretched to breaking point through sheer demand. Our hospitals, ambulance service and GPs, but also services like welfare rights and other support teams.
So we invite in refugees and asylum seekers.
Where the pandemic has increased the number of young people and families needing support to keep them safe.
So you admit we can't take over
It's
our
at
own.
times like these that councils and the services we provide are more and more vital. They matter more than ever to local communities. But to support them, we need to be fairly funded. Not through various funds and schemes we have to bid to central government for,
It's the
but
government's
through
fault.
sustainable levels of funding that acknowledge the level of need in different areas.
It's the
That,
government's
Madam
fault.
Mayor, would be true levelling up. It's not levelling up to ask local council taxpayers to bear the brunt of the impact of the pandemic on local services like adult social care through increased presets.
Jenny Harvey.
It's not levelling up, Madam Mayor,
£60,000,
to ensure that areas with
£70,000
high levels of need are left with the stark choices
officers.
of cutting local services, selling off local assets, or heaping the financial burden onto already struggling local taxpayers.
Yeah.
And we cannot, Madam Mayor, have levelling up until there is acknowledgement of the huge impact that 10 years of government cuts has had on services in this borough.
It's the government's fault.
In Oldham, that amounts to nearly £200 million of funding stripped from local services since 2011.
Bollocks.
Those financial challenges make it even more important that we instill a renewed sense of focus on the people we serve, making sure everything we do aims to improve services, improve lives, and is focused on the needs of our residents. My top priority, above all else in the last few months, has been listening to residents to make sure we understand the nature of the challenges that they are facing.
Bollocks.
As part of this, over the coming months, we're holding meetings in each area, giving people the chance to ask questions and raise local issues to both me and the Chief Executive. And these sessions are open to everyone, and they're a real opportunity for people to share their views and ask anything they need of the council. Along these neighbourhood meetings, we're also holding a big conversation with local people about our town centre regeneration plans. I'm so excited about the prospects for Spindles, for the new housing plan for the area, for the fantastic new town centre park, for our new event space, our new theatre, for a new improved home for Tommyfield Market, and for the plans for the Egyptian rooms. This investment is absolutely crucial to create a new future for our town centre as shopping and leisure habits have changed even more in the light of the pandemic.
So
the
we bought a
purchase of
shopping
Spindles
centre.
was a vital step in delivering this future, and we
Bollocks.
expect a planning application to be submitted before the end of the year, with work on site expected very soon after that. But despite all of our commitment and drive to improve it, it's not our town centre. It belongs to the people of Oldham, and without
don't
their
pass it
support,
on to us.
it's just not going to thrive. So we have to make sure that our plans reflect their thoughts, their wishes, and their concerns through open discussion. Our big conversation is happening now through events in our town centre, including one this coming Saturday in Spindles Shopping Centre. But for those who can't make those town centre events, they can still add their thoughts online.
You should have a look at the questionnaire.
However,
it's disgraceful.
I do know that regeneration plans alone will not be enough to rebuild and re-energise our local economy. When I became leader, I reflected on what more we could do to help our residents
At the
secure
mocktail
good,
bar?
high-paid and secure work.
Bollocks.
To get more money into people's pockets so that they can provide for their families and live much happier lives. And of course, there's no easy answer to that. The economic challenges that Oldham faces are repeated across many areas in the north of England. We need innovation and fresh thinking to shape our own economic destiny
and fresh
as a borough.
thinking. Are you seeing that there? Innovation and fresh
That's why I've asked Alan
thinking.
Francis, the brilliant principal at Oldham College, to lead an independent economic review.
Has he ever
Alan
had a
has
job?
assembled a group of experts, everyone from national think tanks, academics and local business people, to hear evidence on how best to create economic growth in Oldham in a way that genuinely works for local people. We're not interested in solutions that create any old job.
I'm so looking forward to voting this woman out.
Jobs that are filled by people from elsewhere.
So looking forward to having her voted out.
We want Oldham people to get those jobs and to be able to get on in life. The review will be making its recommendations early next year, and I hope it will show Oldham as a forward-thinking, proactive place. And I also hope it will show the government that we can help them shape true levelling up here, in a place that will benefit rather than in Whitehall. In fact, it would benefit ministers greatly to get out of their offices and come to places like Oldham, not only to see the challenges we face, but also how local councils are taking control of this agenda.
You're going to get your chauffeur to pick
I've
him
already
up.
invited Levelling Up Minister Michael Gove for a visit, and that invitation remains open.
It's because he gave you a slap.
Unfortunately, though, It's become abundantly clear that on many things, the government isn't coming to help Oldham.
No, they're coming to help the people, not
it certainly
you.
was when the Chancellor chose to give banks a tax cut shortly after taking £20 per week away from families on universal credit.
Oh, universal
and
credit
I also
again.
know for women and girls in
Universal
particular,
credit.
the
Universal
ponderous
credit.
reaction to the murders of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa will have another cause of concern. We'll be discussing violence against women and girls
Hold
in more
on.
detail later this evening.
So
I'm
that
not really
woman
going to focus much on it now.
was killed by a
Except
policeman.
to say that there's so much more
A
we need to do
policeman.
to tackle the inequalities and injustices
Oh,
that
I'm a
continue to
Muslim
shape our
woman.
society.
I'm a woman. I'm a Muslim
It's why
woman.
I came into politics.
Yes,
and I'm
I'm a
determined to use
Muslim
my
woman.
time as leader
Ah!
to make a difference for those who experience discrimination and unfairness on a daily basis.
As long as you're not
As
white.
part of that effort, I was really pleased to be able to launch the Oldham Women's Task Force recently. We've got a group of truly inspiring women from across the borough who are giving up their time to highlight and tackle the issues that make women's lives most difficult. While I'm really proud that Oldham Council, we have strong representation from women throughout the organisation, too often in society, issues that particularly affect women are missed or treated as an afterthought.
Oh, here we go.
The task force will be putting them front and centre. Earlier this year, we published an equality strategy, and with the Women's Task Force, the Poverty Truth Commission, and my work at Greater Manchester with the Cooperatives and Inclusion Portfolio, there's going to be a lot more to come on this agenda in the weeks and months ahead. In fact, in the next week, we'll be launching an innovative programme with local businesses to create jobs for people who have been in the criminal justice system or are at risk of becoming involved in crime.
Oh, so she's helping her
These people
Pakistani
will be
mates out.
supported into
The
roles to help them
mobsters
make
from
a fresh
Glodick.
start with the help of our amazing local
She's
businesses.
given the mobster from Glodick a job.
I said it when I made my first leader speech in May, that I wanted Oldham to be a place where people are really proud to call it their home. Proud because it's got loads to offer. Proud because we're leading the way on issues like equality and regeneration. And proud because it has lovely places to live. But it might be on the last one that we've achieved the most progress since that speech. One of the big things I wanted to fix as leader was the problem we have with litter and fly tipping. It's not right, Madam Mayor, that some of our neighbourhoods have been looking a mess. These things make a real difference to how people feel about their neighbourhood and their town.
That's exactly what she's doing. She's giving gang-on leaders and their mates jobs.
Has done fantastic work to bring forward a solution to our litter issues. It was great to be able to announce in the summer that we'd be investing £1.27 million to enhance our street cleaning and fly tipping enforcement budget. With that money, we've been able to increase our permanent street clean and enforcement staff. We've been able to work more closely with local communities and voluntary groups and also instigate a deep clean of the whole borough.
Instigate.
I know from speaking to residents that they're already noticing a big difference. In the first month of the deep clean, the team picked up 17 tonnes of litter. Since May, there have been 84 community litter picks, and fly tipping prosecutions are way up. If it wasn't already, it should now be perfectly clear that Oldham won't put up with fly tipping or littering. And if you are going to do it, we're going to find who you are and you will be punished.
Words,
with a Don't Trash
words.
Oldham initiative, the great new facilities we have in our town, exciting projects like the Northern Roots Country Park,
what are the
and the
new
deep
facilities
engagement with
we
our
have in our
residents
town?
through the Big Oldham conversation,
Thank
it
you
feels
for
like
saying
we're seeing
con.
real progress and that we're all pulling in the same direction.
No, you're not.
We've seen what we can do in response to the pandemic and in the progress we've made over recent months. So let's keep that going. We all want the best for Oldham. So whether you're a local councillor who's thinking about a project to improve the area that you represent, a volunteer supporting your neighbours, an entrepreneur who needs that last bit of help to get their idea off the ground, or a student making big plans, let's keep giving it everything we've got. And I've never been so excited about the potential for our borough. But just before I finish, Madam Mayor, I wanted to address an issue that I know has affected so many of us in the chamber tonight. The horrific, tragic murder of Sir David Ames recently brought into sharp focus the risk we all take when we're representing our communities.
Oh, so
that a man
he was
so
killed
to his constituents
by an Islamist terrorist. He was killed by an Islamist terrorist.
It's just Truly heartbreaking and terrifying.
See, you're trying to twist
I'm
this.
glad and
So it's we
responsible.
responsible.
We took the time to give him the honour that he deserved.
Look at the tears. Look at her fake crocodile tears emerging
but
now.
I believe, Madam Mayor, we all have a duty to use this tragic incident to act as a catalyst for change here in Oldham and elsewhere.
You hang off the arm of a
The
convicted
tone of
heroin
political
dealer.
discourse in Oldham, particularly,
You
Madam Mayor,
refuse to
online, has
distance
become
yourself.
truly toxic.
Yes,
I know
you're
that
the
many of
toxic
you
one.
across all
You're
parties
the toxic one.
regularly face abuse, harassment and intimidation online, and some of us, unfortunately, face it in person too.
You endorsed
Much
my
of
murder.
that abuse
You
is incited
endorsed
by
my murder.
misinformation spread online.
What's the misinformation? Where is
clarity,
the grooming
Madam
gang
Mayor,
report?
I'm not seeking
Where is
reduced
the
accountability.
grooming gang
As I have
report?
proven through the introduction of local area meetings, I will answer questions about any topic.
Where is
and I
the
welcome
grooming
challenge
gang
on my
report?
policies and priorities. That's a central part of the job and essential to
Why did you backdate your
What I am
declaration
seeking,
on
Madam Mayor,
Gelato's Ice
is less
Lounge?
hatred and less personal abuse.
We're
Most
not
of which is
personal.
fueled
We
by
want you
lies
out.
and misinformation.
What are the
And
lies
also,
about
if
the
I'm gonna
grooming
be
gangs?
really frank, by
What
the
are the
colour of
lies
my
about the
skin,
grooming gangs?
by my religion, and by the fact that I'm a woman.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we're
Over the last
targeting her
few
because
months,
of her
I've
religion.
faced regular death
We're
threats.
targeting
I've
her
been
because of her
approached and
religion.
verbally attacked in the street, and on a small number of occasions, physically threatened by people.
Yeah.
I know,
Whatever.
Madam Mayor, that I'm not alone
Whatever.
in facing these threats or these worries. And I
We're
know
very
I'm not
clear.
alone in seeing this impacting on my
We're
family
very clear.
members.
We want her voted
While
out.
we cannot control what the small number of people
Vote
seeking to
her
create
out.
mistrust and division in our town
Vote
say
her
and do,
out.
we can collectively agree not to fuel it.
Oh.
We can collectively agree to address misinformation where it rears its head,
So you're hanging
rather
hanging
than
out with
using it for
Wilby.
political gain. And we can collectively agree to publicly condemn those who seek to spread hate and incite abuse. All of us
She's
in
the
this room,
racist.
Madam Mayor, became councillors because we wanted to improve this borough. And that won't happen
Anti-white,
while we allow
working
those with
class
their own agendas
racist.
to divide us. As councillors, I believe the best way to combat the hate and vitriol we see online and tragically in real life is by working well together and with mutual respect. That starts in this chamber, but also has to extend far, far beyond it. I will end by saying, Madam Mayor, that although the last few months have been tough, challenging both personally and professionally, they have helped shape my resolve. They've conditioned me to fight even harder for local people and for
You're
the borough
bent.
that I love.
This woman is
I
bent.
know that all of you in this room share that focus, whatever
bent.
side of the political spectrum
Irish
you may be
Amy.
on. And we'll
Bent.
need that contribution of the whole of the council
Vote
if
her
we're
out
going to
in
meet
May.
our ambitious plans for the borough and our aim to improve local people's lives. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
It's because I'm a Muslim
Thank you,
woman.
Councillor
I'm
Shah.
targeted. Bollocks.
We move on to item
Absolute
9,
lying
Youth Council,
bollocks.
and there is no Youth Council business tonight. So
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Oh, here we go. Here we
yes,
go.
Councillor Wilkinson. If it's to ask a question, I'm afraid we don't have questions at this point.
It's in relation to the item you just mentioned, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
It's in relation to item 9,
The Youth Council. People that want
Yeah,
the
well,
meet.
there is no Youth Council business tonight.
And
And
why
that's
it's
exactly what I want to mention, Madam Mayor. Since being elected in May of this year,
You tell
this
them.
is the 4th full council meeting I've been
Don't
to.
stop. Don't chop.
I'm
On each
sorry,
and every
Councillor
occasion,
Don't
there's
stop.
been an allotted time slot of 20 to 30 minutes for youth council business. However, this allocation has never been taken up.
Yes.
Is it possible, therefore, that this time be given over to public questions to extend the insufficient 15 minutes agreed by the council? Surely the public would appreciate a greater opportunity to be involved in these meetings. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson, that wasn't appropriate to bring that up at that time.
Of course it was.
It's
Of
up to the
course
Youth
it
Council
was.
Whether they, we keep that on the agenda because that was agreed by full council. That is available to them every meeting and cannot be allocated to other items on the agenda.
Why not?
It seems a shame, Madam Mayor, though, when it's not being used and this opportunity could be used for public questions.
No. These decisions are made at full council meetings.
This is a full council meeting.
Reports have been discussed. We can't just make things up on the night as we go along.
He's not asking that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we move on to item 10, question time. This part of the agenda is question time, where council will consider all questions submitted in the order received, starting with public questions. This meeting is open to the public, not a public meeting, which means that the only people with a right to speak are councillors, and other people may only speak at the invitation of the Mayor during public question time. There is a 15-minute time limit for public questions, and once this time limit expires, no further questions will be asked. There's no right of reply to the answers given. I will be reading out the questions due to COVID restrictions. If the time limit has expired and a member of the public has submitted a question which has been ruled in for consideration, the question and response will be published on the council's website. So the first question has been received from Robert Barnes. The time limit for public questions has been reduced to 15 minutes by this administration. Would the council leader give serious consideration to restoring the time limit to 30 minutes? In addition, at the moment, there is no right of reply to the question that has been asked. In the interests of openness, transparency, accountability and democracy, will the council leader give serious consideration to allow the public a right of reply of 2 minutes to an answer that they have been given by an elected member?
That's a good
Elected
question by Robert.
members are
It's a very
servants
good
of the
question
people.
by Robert.
Isn't it
Very,
time
very
that this
good.
administration acknowledge that?
You
I
tell
call
them,
on
Robert.
Councillor Shah to respond, please.
He's going to take you out, Shah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think we do acknowledge that we're servants of the people. That's why we call ourselves public servants. But it is important to say that every public question that is submitted to full council receives an answer from me or another cabinet member. And we try to fit as many answers as we can into the meeting, so that but those that don't get asked do get a written response, and that response is published on our website. By extending time for public questions, we would, however, have to reduce time for other urgent and important business that the council has to get through.
Nonsense.
Or reduce time for elected representatives to raise issues or queries about their wards.
Mark's just explained
how. We could also
how.
consider adding a right of reply, but this would inevitably reduce the number of public questions we could address
So
in any
what's
meeting.
the point of having a full
Decisions
council
about
meeting in
changes
front
to
of the
full
public?
council timings are made by a cross-party group made up of me and my fellow group leaders. I'm happy to take this to a future meeting for discussion. However, as a Conservative candidate for a council position, I'm sure Mr Barnes could also raise this with Councillor Sheldon, who could also bring it to the meeting for discussion.
No, he's a member of public. He's a member of the public. He has every right to ask a question as a member of the public.
By Julie and George Haywood. My question to the leader of Oldham Council: does she think it is okay for OMBC to block and blank my dad's concerns? He's 89 years old, has been waiting for a call back since June last year. Also blocked from I Love Oldham page on Facebook. Complaints had me ring my complaint, then email them, then put them in writing, to be then told I'm out of time. Do you think something needs to be done to prevent us the public, from having our concerns and complaints blocked and blanked? Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
It's either a yes or a no, isn't it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Julie and George Haywood for their question. Our social media channels aim to provide an informative, engaging and inclusive space for all residents of Oldham. We will answer questions, provide useful information and signpost residents to the services and the departments that they need. But posts that direct criticism to the council are never usually removed. In fact, we welcome and encourage feedback from our residents.
Liar!
And we're happy
Liar!
to be told where we've got it wrong.
Liar! Liar!
However, we do take a zero-tolerance approach to racism and abuse on our social media pages,
like Julie
just as we would
has
if we
done
were to
anything
have face-to-face
racist,
conversations.
or an 89-year-old
That's why we have a policy on what we
said
deem to be
anything
acceptable
racist.
use,
They have not said
which is
anything
published both on
racist.
our Facebook page and on our website.
You
On occasion,
disgraceful woman.
there are comments that do not meet our social standards, and we are forced to remove them. If
Liar.
users breach this policy more than once, or if they use language that is deemed serious, then we will block them from commenting on our
Julie,
posts.
she's calling you a racist.
On the 10th of December
She's
2019, Ms Hayward was banned from commenting on our posts as her comments breached what we would deem to be acceptable. Our policy clearly states that anyone making abusive, discriminatory or offensive comments will have them removed, and they will be blocked from posting on our channels.
Liar.
I can confirm, though, that George Hayward is not listed as currently or has ever been banned from commenting. I am aware that Ms Hayward has previously complained about her being blocked from our Facebook page, and we responded to her some weeks ago to explain why. We also clarified that her father had never ever been blocked.
She needs
We have also
to be
confirmed
voted
to Ms
out.
Hayward
She
that given
needs
the
to be
length of
voted
time
out.
that has passed, she has been reinstated on the Love Oldham Facebook page and can now engage with our content in line with our social media rules. But I would like to make a request that she does not, again, breach any of the guidelines.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. She's
Thank
just
you.
called you a racist.
The next question
She just
has been
called you a
submitted by
racist.
Joshua
Oh
Cartels.
my God.
Throughout the country, young carers are struggling with the pressure put on them as they try to balance education, work, caring responsibilities, and perhaps, if possible, leisure time. Unfortunately, young people with caring responsibilities are often hidden from public view and
People of
struggle to
Oldham,
find the help and support
vote
they
this
need.
woman out.
Could
Vote
the
her
relevant
out.
Cabinet member please tell us how many young people in Oldham are classed as young carers and what services we have in place to support them? I call on Councillor Moores to respond. Can you put your microphone on, Councillor Moores? Is it working?
Amanda, none of us have ever said anything racist. Any more than any of us have never. None of us have ever incited violence.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
They just don't like being held to account.
Thank you, Joshua, for the question. In answer to the first part of the question, at the end of March 2021, we had 601 young carers receiving support from Positive Steps. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. There are many more young carers out there who are hidden from view. Moving on to what provision is provided.
Someone's
The council
that for him.
contracted Positive Steps to deliver a young carers service.
And he's not even read it beforehand.
The young
It's
carer
the
support
first time
works
he's
provide
reading
and
it.
maintain a support
You
service
can
to
tell.
young people with caring responsibilities.
This is the first
who are
time he's
living
reading the
or are
answer that someone's
educated in
prepared for
Oldham
him.
and to their families. They
Look
work
at
with
him.
schools and other support agencies to identify young people aged from 8 to 18 who have caring responsibilities, and they assess the needs of these individuals and agree the levels of support needed. They also lead on targeted intervention for those young people who need intensive
Disgraceful.
care.
Absolutely disgraceful.
Besides their council funding, Positive Steps attracts additional funding through its charitable trust and donations to support its work with young people with caring responsibilities. They have recently secured a grant from Children in Need, which will enable them to develop a peer support programme with some of the older young people aged 14 plus and enable them to employ a coordinator for the service.
This is nonsense. This is absolute joke. It's a
But it doesn't
nonsense.
stop there. During the pandemic,
But it doesn't
rather
stop
than
there. I forgot to
furloughing
read the
staff,
next bit.
Positive Steps chose to provide support for these young people using their own resources, as they were concerned that with schools closed, there would be an increase in responsibilities and a lack of respite time,
Oh
which
my
would have
God.
an adverse impact on the young carers. They also arranged for all young people active within the service to obtain iPads in order that they would continue with their schooling and use it for social contact and leisure activities. Just to finish, I visited Positive Steps yesterday and met 2 young carers and heard about how they supported members of their family and how they value the support given to them by the service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh my good God.
Thank you, Councillor
Is this the
Moore.
calibre of councillors we have?
The next question has been submitted by Leanne Munro. I'm very concerned about a huge increase in fuel bills at the same time that the government has cut universal credit by £20 a week. Food costs are rising and furlough has ended. What will be the impact on Oldham residents and what
So this is one of those planted questions. This is one of those planted questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Leanne for her important question. The Council is keenly aware of the financial pressures being faced by many in Oldham and the highest tax burden in peacetime falling on working people.
Remember
in this
last
regard, the
month,
Council
you
is
spent
providing
over an
support
hour.
in a number of ways. Firstly, using Oldham's allocation, the government's household support fund to support vulnerable families with children and young people.
These are our most senior councillors.
And again
they
over
can't
Christmas
even answer a question.
Period and February 22 half-term holiday. Secondly, using funding from the government's holiday food and activities programme to provide a range of support, including provision of healthy food and enriching activities for school-age children who receive benefit-related free school meals.
What about samosas?
Thirdly, the Warm Home teams assist residents in need of emergency credit vouchers for electricity and gas, and with new and replacement boilers, as well as giving practical advice on switching energy suppliers or tariff, energy-saving measures.
What does that even mean?
Reduce energy use around.
What does that even mean?
Fourthly,
you can't even read it as a sentence.
The welfare provision scheme is available to support those in crisis with essential household items, including beds, bedding, white goods, and furniture. And finally, Madam Mayor, there's also support through the discretionary housing payment for people who are not getting full housing benefit.
This was a planted question to promote the council.
They're not getting the rent covered by the housing benefit. And there's also the council tax reduction scheme for people who are struggling with council. But I understand the question. Unfortunately, what the government has done in the last budget will undoubtedly place additional financial pressures on households who live in Oldham and elsewhere in the country. But we are doing all we can to support those families. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely.
The next question has been submitted by Sarah Birch. I saw a report on North West tonight saying Oldham has a housing crisis. Can the Cabinet Member for Housing explain if this is true and whether the recent news that all social housing homes in Oldham will be available through the Housing Options Service, and will this make a difference? I call on Councillor Roberts to respond.
Thank Ms Birch for her question. Oldham Council has over 6,000 households on the housing register who all have a housing need. Oldham Council operates a common allocations framework, the CAF, and members of the CAF, we have 6 registered social landlords who take part, including, again now, First Choice Homes, provide all of their available to rent homes through this framework. The remaining 5 registered providers operate a nominations agreement, letting half of their available to rent social homes to households on the housing register. We receive approximately 150 rehousing applications each week, and about 80% or 120 of these are accepted onto the Council's rehousing register. When the pandemic hit, we saw a sharp decrease in the number of social homes becoming available to rent, with only 5 to 10 homes available each week. The number of socially rented homes becoming available to rent is increasing, with an average for the past 4 weeks of 32 a week. However, given the numbers applying, this means that the numbers on the housing register are still increasing by about 100 households a week. Oldham has also had an increase in homelessness applications from 1,286 in 1920 to 1,367 in 2021, which is an increase of 6% over the past 12 months. As a local authority, we are doing all we can to try and improve the supply of affordable homes within the borough, including the ambitious Creating a Better Place programme. However, we need a change in government policy to provide Oldham with the funds to build social homes at the scale needed to meet the increasing demand demonstrated by the number of households on our housing register.
That wasn't even the answer.
The next question has been submitted by Neil Wilby. Would Councillor Shah, on behalf of the Council, please provide members with an update on the progress of the Oldham strand of the Greater Manchester Mayor's Assurance Review regarding child sexual exploitation? Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah
Why
to respond.
is he asking these questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Neil Wilby for his question.
Of course you like to thank
The
Neil
ongoing
Wilby.
independent review into historic safeguarding practices is being led by the Combined Authority. And it is the Combined Authority and report authors Malcolm Newsom and Gary Ridgway who will determine final arrangements for its publication. I have not yet had sight of the draft report and won't have until it's been finalised, but I am assured by Mayor Burnham that the report will be published by the end of the year, as he indicated it would. What I can promise is that when it is published, we will welcome its findings, reflect on any lessons we can learn from past practice, and aim to make the support we give to victims of abuse better. At the heart of this review is reinstating trust and confidence on our safeguarding procedures, so that people will feel confident reporting their concerns to us, knowing that they will be dealt with robustly and, most importantly, sensitively.
The grooming gangs.
As promised, as soon as we have a publication date, we will arrange a special meeting for councillors and members of the public to ask any questions and consider the findings. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Dale Rees.
Please
can I ask what's going on with this barrier? We were promised to stop fly tipping at the back of St James's Church in Durka, where it's bad for fly tipping. I see all other locations have been done. I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
It's what happens when you lie, mate. It's what happens when you lie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Mr Rees for his question as well?
It's what happens
Mr Rees
when
is
you
correct
lie.
in that the other barriers are now up across Oldham in some of our fly tipping hotspots and to very positive effect. I understand that this one has been progressed last, as there is a legal process and consultation to go through, which can take 3 to 6 months. I have asked officers to undertake that process as soon as possible, and if expected the outcome of this to be a positive one, then for officers to install the barrier as soon as they can following the end of that process.
We have a right to reply, mate. That right to reply is voting them out.
This is the last question. This was submitted by Neil Wilby. Would Councillor Shah, on behalf of the Council, please inform members of progress being made with regards to tackling online abuse in the darker corners of the internet in Oldham?
How dare you ask that question?
The campaign run by the Council was well conceived and executed, but are there any positive steps that can be taken by the executive management team to arrest the problem? Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We know this has been a particular issue in Oldham over the last few years, with a small minority of people spreading lies and misinformation widely online in order to incite abuse both online and in real life. From my own experience taking steps against abuse, this incites is difficult, as reporting to social media platforms often offers no response or action, even where content is clearly racist, misogynistic, or part of a targeted campaign of harassment. Where we believe online abuse that we are notified is of a threatening nature or could cause problems or incite hate or threat, we do consider it as a hate crime, and we've always reported it to GMP. We would urge others who are subject to this type of abuse to also report it through the proper channels. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolute joke. Absolute joke.
The next part of this section is questions to Leader and Cabinet with a time limit of 30 minutes. And I have advance notice of questions. The Leader of the Liberal Democrat will ask his questions. Councillor Sykes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just before I start my question, I hope you give me a bit of latitude. One, good to see prayers back at the start of the meeting, which isn't really the start of the meeting, but that was good. And then the second thing is I'd just like to wish everybody who will be celebrating Diwali a happy time later this week. But my first question tonight, Madam Mayor, concerns the Queen's Platinum Jubilee next year. And first and foremost, I hope Council will join me in wishing Her Majesty a full and speedy recovery from her recent spell of being under the weather. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II will in 2022 have been our noble sovereign and head of the Commonwealth for 70 years. And there are rightly calls from every quarter that this magnificent and unsurpassed, and I think never to be seen again, achievement in public service is properly celebrated in every corner of our land. In June, I wrote to Councillor Chatterton as Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods requesting that the rose varieties named after Her Majesty the Queen and her late husband, HRH Prince Philip, should be planted side by side in Oldham's major parks and gardens as a tribute to our royal family. I also copied in Councillor Hume as tree champion, as I suggested that we get our borough's residents involved in a tree planting programme to mark the Platinum Jubilee, with schools and community groups planting trees in our parks and gardens. On the 2nd of June 2022, the actual date of the anniversary, localities in the UK and across the Commonwealth are being invited to light beacons, to arrange for town criers to make proclamations, and at the setting of the sun, local pipe bands will play a unique tune specially composed for the occasion. We shall no doubt receive many calls from our borough's residents for permission to hold street parties and other celebratory events. So can the leader please tell me what is being done to prepare for this momentous event, and will she also consider appointing a senior member of her administration as champion to coordinate the effort on behalf of the borough? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor Sykes for his question. Absolutely, I agree entirely. There are discussions happening at the moment where we're putting forward proposals, and once they have been finalised, we will definitely share them. And I absolutely agree with Councillor Sykes that we should celebrate it in the dignified way that it warrants. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, second question, Councillor Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank the leader for her response. And my second question tonight I want to return to is a subject that has become a fixture in the annual council calendar. No, I'm not referring to the Oldham Big Bang, which explodes once more tomorrow night. Instead, it's my annual question that as leader of the opposition I ask about Princess Gate. For once more this month we shall arrive at yet another anniversary of the announcement by the former council leader, now thrice removed, of the supposed game changer that was to be Princess Gate. And this year, this farce turns to 7 years. I would have brought a birthday cake with candles to share with everybody, but we have yet even to see it make it to birth. The Princess Gate has been in a gestation period over 4 times longer than an elephant, which is 18 to 22 months, by the way, if you're interested. And on the 19th of November 2014, the BBC first reported Oldham Council's announcement of the game changer and a promise of 150,000 square foot retail development, 800 homes and 700 car parking spaces. This project has seen numerous false dawns. It is now 2 years since the latest, when in the Council's town centre vision, this administration promised work due to start on site autumn 2019. The project has been significantly scaled back. The early withdrawal of the missing retail giant Marks and Spencer's meant we now only have the promise of a 28,500 square foot retail development, 1/5 the size of the original proposal, and supporting Axe, Lidl and Travelodge, not the original headliner Marks and Spencer's. So as we rapidly approach the 7th anniversary of inactivity, please can the leader tell me, is there any possibility whatsoever of shovels in the ground anytime soon for this much heralded development? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the science lesson as well, Councillor Sykes. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think on this, it's disappointing that Princess Gate has not progressed. And we do share those same frustrations, but the detailed plans for town entrepreneurs are available on our website for comments. We're expected to have a planning application, like I said in my annual statement, for Spindles towards the end of this year, and the project should commence soon after. For our wider town centre regeneration, I hope that response is acceptable to the Leader of Opposition.
You asked about Prince's Gate.
Thank you. The Conservative Group Leader will ask his questions. Councillor Sheldon, 2 questions, please.
Do you see how they're all in it together?
Separately or both together?
Could I ask them separately, please?
Yeah,
They're
okay.
quite different questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to ask Councillor Shah if she will join me in thanking the Oldham Ramblers for their sterling work over the past 12 months.
Wow.
This group did their last job for the year yesterday and will now take a break until spring.
Wow.
They are a voluntary group who turn out in all weathers to tidy up footpaths around
and
our
the Leader
borough.
of the Opposition wants the councillor,
use their own equipment, tools and their own time to carry out this work.
To say thank you
On
to the
occasion,
Ramblers. I'm not
they
knocking
may
the
need
Ramblers,
some financial support,
but he wants
and we
them
as
to say
councillors
thank you.
can support this work
Wow.
through our individual budgets.
Wow.
I would also like to encourage residents to get out into the fresh air and discover the paths which have now been cleared. Walking is a sure way to enjoy the outdoors and is a benefit both for our mental health and social interaction.
Wow.
Once again, my sincere thanks to the Oldham Ramblers. Thank you.
Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sheldon, for your question. Yay! Of course, we'll join him in thanking them, as we would with any voluntary group improving our borough. And we would be happy to meet with them to discuss how we can work with them as part of our Don't Trash Oldham campaign, as those footpaths, I agree with Councillor Sheldon, are really vital to the borough. And I'd also think it'd be nice, Madam Mayor, if we can meet them jointly to absolutely acknowledge and celebrate their achievements.
Very happy to. Leader. Okay, thank you. Councillor Sheldon, your second question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This one is particularly relevant at this time of year. Please, will the Council Leader condemn all illegal sale of fireworks? Also, to ask members of the public to respect their neighbours, and in particular those with young children, when setting off fireworks. May I also highlight the distress fireworks can cause to pets and livestock, which all suffer from
I'm going to
loud
interject
noises.
on this because he's obviously talking
I would ask everybody
fireworks,
to
and there'll be a
enjoy
typical answer.
fireworks,
This is
but
Graham
be
Sheldon, and for
responsible
those who claim I'm a
when
Tory
lighting them.
and I'm a Conservative, listen, I'm an Alderman. This is disgraceful.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I thank
questioning.
Councillor Sheldon for his question.
Disgraceful
I agree,
level of questioning
fireworks being
from
set
Graham
off can be
Sheldon. He
completely
started
and entirely
off,
distressful
he
and
refused to
harmful.
ask a senior
And we will
police
do what
officer
we
a
can
question.
to promote the
We all noticed
use of
that.
safe fireworks.
And
But I
when
do
the
agree
town
with
is
the
burning,
condemnation
the
of
town
illegal
is burning,
sale of illegal
vigilante
fireworks.
street
They do
patrols,
create
this
distress, but they're
mobsters
also
mall in
completely just
Fraud,
unacceptable, because I
corruption.
hear
The
them
High
going
Court
off at
coming to
all
the
times
town,
of the day
and
and night,
Graham
and it's just
Sheldon,
not right. And we do
the
need to
leader of the
take
Conservatives
some
from
action, but
Saddleworth,
have a really strong
why I can't
lobbying
be asked
perspective
with
on
the
this.
proud
I agree
Oldham
with
lot.
them
This is the
entirely, and we'll do
Saddleworth
what we can
pissing contest.
to promote
Wants to go
the
on
use of safe
about
fireworks. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oldham Ramblers.
Thank you.
The fireworks question should have been
I've had a
about
request, in order for
McMahon's
Councillor
mate's
Hindle
wedding venue.
to ask a question.
But he wouldn't do.
Does Council agree to waive Council Procedure Rule? Wait for it, you'll know it off by heart. Rule 2.1.3H.
Exactly, Kenny. Fireworks and Ramblers. What a...
do we agree to waive that rule?
Agree, Madam Mayor.
So they're now waiving
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Before
Sorry,
they said they wouldn't
I've not
waive
switched
rules.
my microphone on. Yeah, the rule has been waived. The floor is yours.
Thank you. In light of the news that the Council could find no development partner for the Spindle site and is planning to self-deliver, I'd like to ask the Leader or Cabinet Member responsible whether it may be a more sensible and viable option to cut our losses and sell the site on. With the Council's track record on projects, Prince's Gate, the flagship Queen Elizabeth Hall Conference Centre, and the massive overspend on the cinema, to name a few, this has the makings of becoming another money pit.
Yeah, I agree
The
with you,
previous
man.
leader assured us that it was a bargain purchase. Surely then someone will take this bargain off our hands. Our residents deserve better than having to pay for any more failed vanity projects. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Shah, lead us
That's a question.
Thank you,
Graham
Madam
Sheldon,
Mayor.
that's a
I'd like to
question.
thank Councillor Hindle for his question, but absolutely not. We would not be selling it. It's in the middle of our town centre, and we cannot afford for it to be owned for people who don't care about it. We've been there before, and it's had grim consequences.
Why
We have
didn't you
grand
get-
plans that will be live next year, and it's our job to support the town centre and build its future. And I'm not going to apologise, Madam Mayor, for being ambitious for the people of our town or for our town centre. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
She has
Thank you.
grand plans. She has grand plans.
We move on now. I call Councillor
A
McLaren
chicken
to
shop
ask
on
a
every
question.
corner. She has grand plans.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the number of new residential properties now underway in Chatham Central Ward, and also the fact that we have 2 high schools, both
Feels off
situated on the
independent,
west
that
side
guy
of
was.
Broadway,
Neil.
could the Cabinet member responsible for transport please explain what is being put in place to encourage people living, working and studying in this area to walk, cycle or use public transport? Thank you.
Call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank Councillor McLaren for his question. There's a lot going on to make it easier for people to get around on foot, by bike, or to use the bus. The Mayor's B Network cycling and walking plan includes 2 schemes in the Chadderton area. One linking Broadway to the Metrolink stop at Freehold, and the one linking Broadway to the Rochdale Canal. We're also working with local residents in Chadderton North and Westwood to design Oldham's first active neighbourhood scheme to make it easier for them to get around on foot and by bike. We're working with Transport for Greater Manchester to improve public transport, with the number of parking spaces at Mills Hill Rail Station set to double as part of a scheme to improve the park and ride there. And plans being developed to improve the main bus route between Oldham, Rochdale and Ashton. Greater Manchester, Madam Mayor, is also changing the way buses are run, bringing them under local control, which will mean better services for all areas, including Chadderton Central. And we're asking Transport for Greater Manchester to look at whether Metrolink could be extended from Oldham to Middleton as part of that long-term plan. This is all part of a much bigger plan for Greater Manchester to have a London-style active travel and public transport network that will make it easier for everyone to get around. And this is a London-style transport, but with also London-style fares. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
She has no idea.
I call on Councillor
I'll
Goodwin
rip
to
that
ask a
apart
question, please.
when I rip it apart.
Thank you, Madam
This
Mayor.
is nonsense.
Could the
Nonsense
Cabinet
answer.
Member for Finance please explain to the Council and to Oldham's residents and businesses the impact of the Chancellor's budget and spending review? What will the impact over the next few years on personal budgets and on the Council's capacity to deliver quality services?
Call on Councillor Jabbar to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Goodwin for his question. As I mentioned earlier, Madam Mayor, the Chancellor has placed the highest tax burden on the working people in peacetime.
Oh, it's the government's fault. As I said, my name is Abdul Jabbar. I owned a samosa set where I cleaned up on all the grants.
But the overall
Yes.
impact on individual will be linked to personal
But it's all the government's fault.
However, the previously
Government's
announced increase in national insurance contributions
government's
to support
fault.
health and social care spending
Government's
will
fault.
have detrimental impact on household income.
Detrimental impact.
The
Government fault.
fundamental review of business rates has been deferred,
Government
which
fault.
will not only have impact on businesses but also on the finances of the council.
Government's
However,
fault.
business rate relief were extended for retail, leisure and hospitality businesses into 2022-23. There's clearly additional funding for local government, 4.8 billion of new
Blah,
funding
blah, blah.
over the next
Samosa,
3
samosa,
financial
samosa.
years.
Government
But
fault.
the additional
Government
resources
fault.
announced
Government fault.
were at very high level, and at this stage it's very difficult to actually estimate the additional resources for Oldham. We will get more detail of that when the provisional
You know
local
what you should be
government
doing?
finance
Ignore this
settlement
idiot.
is
Graham
announced,
Sheldon,
which is expected in
you should be
December.
writing to the Conservative Party.
The receipt
Any of you who are
additional
contemplating
funding
voting
will
for the
support
Conservatives
council in
after
its
seeing
budget
that
setting
shit show
and will
from
support
Graham
the
Sheldon, should be
financial
writing to your
sustainability
local
of the
Conservative
council
councillor
for 2022-23
and saying, how
and
can you
future
expect
years.
us to vote
Once
for
the
you to get
detail
this
is announced,
corrupt
the
Labour
financial
Party
forecast
council
of the
out
council
when
will
you've
be
got a
finalised.
man like Graham Sheldon in charge?
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar.
Who is
I
sucking
call on
up to us.
Councillor Gary to ask a
Absolute
question.
disgraceful. The Ramblers. Can
Thank
we
you,
thank
Madam
the
Mayor.
Ramblers?
I was
Ramblers,
shocked and
give me a
saddened to
shout.
hear of the death
I'll bring you some
of Sir
samosas.
David Amis MP at his surgery. Taking part in a fundamental building block of our democracy, the ability of our constituents to meet their representatives face to face alone. I watched the tributes from all sides of the House and was moved by the responses. A cursory appraisal of what was written in most of the daily newspapers was also positive, calling for more respect of opposing views, etc. I was therefore understandably surprised to read of the vile abuse and death threat that an Oldham MP has received from a troll on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
But pleased that the disgraceful troll has now received a suspended prison sentence and a fine for his action. However, I was outraged when a resident called John wrote the following on the Oldham Times Facebook page as a report on Jim's Justice as Left Town article, and I will read the comments to you. This quote said by Cher's character to Darrell Van Horn in The Witches of Eastwick perfectly sums up JM and his phony cronies at OMBC. You are physically repulsive, intellectually retarded.
Yeah.
You're morally reprehensible, vulgar, insensitive, selfish, stupid. You have no taste. A lousy sense of humour and you smell. You're not even interested enough to make me sick. Obviously, I reported this to Facebook and was told that it doesn't go against any of our community standards.
Listen,
For this
it's either
reason,
a
we didn't take
free
the comment
country
down.
and its freedom of expression
I
exists, or
find
it
John's
doesn't. What do you
disgraceful
want?
comments sickening and wonder, will we never rise
Did he
up
incite
above the
violence?
pit
No,
that
I don't know who
political
this guy is.
discord seem to have descended to? As long as such disgraceful comments against whichever political
Your
party are allowed.
leader of the council endorsed my murder.
I call on Councillor
the leader
Shah
of
to
your
respond.
council endorsed the offer of my
I'd like
murder.
to thank
Her
Councillor
mates
Gary for her
described me as
question,
a
and I'd
gay
simply like to say I agree
Christian
with
convert
you
attempting to
on this
incite
issue.
violence
More
against
should
me.
absolutely be
She
done
hangs
to
off
manage
the
and moderate
arm of a
online
man
hate and abuse.
who's been convicted
Unfortunately,
in the
though,
courts.
the so-called
And-
community standards that
and
social media platforms
not even
claim to
talk about Neil
uphold
Wilber.
are quite simply a joke. I myself have reported several times posts that were racist and abusive in nature,
Racist,
only to be told that
racist,
they do not breach their
racist,
standards. Facebook
racist.
and other social media platforms are at their heart advertising platforms, and then in my view should be held to similar standards and guidelines to other advertising like they do on television and print. You're also correct to raise the responsibilities that those who run Facebook groups and pages have to moderate hateful abuse content. On our own social media channels, as I said earlier in response to a public question, we take a zero-tolerance approach to this and remove such posts as soon as we become aware of them. And I would like to think that other local brands and organisations would follow suit. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah.
You should all be pleased
on
with this
Councillor Byrne
because
to
they're
ask a
feeling the
question,
pressure and they're trying to say
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
we need to be censored and
my
silenced.
question is about footpaths within all wards. There are definitive footpaths in most wards which have not been given attention during the past 18 months. Many have been deliberately blocked, signs turned in opposite directions, and many just fallen into disrepair. Enforcement on actions to rectify
She's talking
these
about footpaths
have been almost
and wants some money
non-existent
spending
by
on
the
them,
Council
which is
for a
understandable,
number of
Pam.
reasons
You talk
throughout
about
this
footpaths.
pandemic.
Office
I
at
know of a number of footpath issues that have been
oldhamconservatives.org.uk is
raised
the
in the
email.
Saddleworth wards.
Write to it.
These are rural wards.
Ask for an explanation from Graham Sheldon, and if he's not up to the job, he should resign.
Not
If
only
he's
from
not
these
up
wards,
to the
but
job
from the wider
of
Oldham
holding
area.
this corrupt council to
Open air
account,
recreation
if
has
he's
become
too nice
very
a man
important
and not
to
up
so
to the
many
job,
people,
he should
and as a
resign.
council,
And
we
let's
have
have a
encouraged
younger
this.
councillor there who is up to the job
We
and
now
who
have a
will
new
hold them to
footpaths
account.
officer, and can I ask that he has a suitable budget and time to recommence and enforce rules and laws that have been suspended during the time of COVID, so that it does not just fall to willing volunteers
Exactly, Denise.
and councillors'
Exactly.
allowances to put these things right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank Councillor Byrne for her question as well? As Councillor Byrne has already referenced, we do have a new permanent full-time public right-of-way officer who was appointed this summer. He started to work to establish communications and relationships with many of our local walking groups and associations since he took on the role. He has been dealing with and focusing on the numerous unofficial blockages of the public right-of-way network that were not dealt with during the COVID lockdown period. This backlog of very specific issues is what is being prioritised by the officer at the moment. In addition to the full-time post, there's overall funding of £35,000 per year for the public right-of-way small schemes and maintenance works. This compromises both revenue and capital money. In order to fund larger capital scheme improvements where the possible funds are approved within the overall highways capital programme for individual schemes, such as the recent replacement of the large bridleway bridge across Church Road in Uppermill, carrying the Pennine Bridleway. This was replaced at a cost of £165,000. Where possible, we do apply for external grant funding as well, and if necessary, the council does match fund that. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chris Gloucester to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the Oldham Liberal Democrats' written submission to the local plan, the group called for tighter controls on premises being converted to houses of multiple occupation, or as we more commonly know them, HMOs. This was picked up by the Oldham Times, who asked the Cabinet Member for Housing for her comments, where she accused the Liberal Democrats of playing to the gallery. It is notable that Jim McMahon MP, who is the MP representing constituents in Councillor Roberts' ward, has recently called for the very same thing, stating that Oldham Council needs to act now to stop the constant stream of HMO applications, adding, "I would press for action to be prioritised to address this head-on." And just for clarification, this was in the Oldham Times on the 1st of October this year. Can the Cabinet Member for Housing tell us if we can now envisage action to be prioritised, or is Jim McMahon MP simply playing to the gallery as well?
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Gloucester for his question. The Council is already considering what measures are available to enable stronger management of the conversion of properties to HMOs. Any changes to council planning policy on the conversion of properties to HMOs have to be made through the local plan review, as new planning policies cannot be introduced without the due process of a local plan examination and the adoption of these new policies in a new local plan. Once adopted, these policies would then be material considerations in the planning process and will be considered as part of dealing with any planning application. Alongside this, the Council is exploring introducing Article 4 directions and specifically included this issue in the Issues and Options consultation on the local plan. Where there is evidence that would justify the removal of permitted development rights for the conversion of homes to HMOs housing fewer than 7 unrelated individuals. Currently, permitted development rights mean that no planning permission is needed for such a conversion.
They have powers. But
all conversions of non-residential properties to HMOs and for conversion of residential properties to HMOs of 7 or more people,
as you can see,
planning permission
she's reading
is already
from a script.
required.
She has no idea, but they do have powers to stop HMOs.
I call on Councillor Shuttleworth to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the land at the former failed collective spirits free school site within Chadderton South Ward was returned to the council some years ago now, and one individual from outside Shadden South continues to question the future use of this particular site. Part of the site has already been returned to Whitegate Primary School to benefit the children who have missed out on the use of their playing field in recent years.
Actually,
while this
that's
site
a lie.
appears on a strategic housing land availability schedule, may I ask the appropriate Cabinet member to confirm, 1, if this land would only be suitable for housing, 2, has there been any interest in the purchase of the land from any developer, and 3, is there or has there been any application under consideration for housing developments or any other development? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Roberts to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Shuttleworth for his question. And to answer his specific questions in turn, firstly, a site of this size and nature could have a number of potential uses. However, given the well-publicised shortage of quality new homes, and in particular of affordable homes within the borough, and the need to meet the government's housing targets while minimising impact on the Greenbelt, it's considered that residential housing is the most appropriate use of the land in these circumstances. Secondly, there have been no recent direct inquiries from developers for this specific site. And thirdly, the Council has not taken forward any planning applications in relation to this site to date.
Do you see the word recent?
I call on
I've said it
Councillor
before,
Mushtaq
when they
to
fell
ask
out
a
with me and
question.
attacked me.
Thank you,
because
Madam
they had
Mayor.
a dodgy deal.
Following the
agreed for
highly
that
successful
land. Jim
clean-up
McMahon
campaign
had
in
a dodgy
Alexandra
deal,
Ward
agreed
this
for that
September,
land, and
the
that's
ward
how he helped
councillors have
sabotage
received
those schools.
numerous comments
And
expressing
Whitegate
gratitude and
Whitegate
praising the staff for their
always
great
had
work.
access to the playing
They
field
have also
because we
asked that this
insisted
great
was the
work be
case.
complemented by
Complete
stronger
lies.
enforcement and prosecutions to help reduce the number of people fly tipping. Can the relevant Cabinet member please update us on these issues? Thank you.
Thank you. Call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you to Councillor Mushtaq for his question. And thank you also for the appreciation of the team involved in the Don't Trash Oldham work that has been ongoing since September, and obviously we're in his own ward during that first month. It's good to hear such positive comments from residents and businesses in the ward, and I myself was outdoor after with our engagement team earlier on this week in Shawlands. We've moved over to Shawland Crampton, and it was really good to hear how positive residents were about and how receptive they are to the scheme and how they can see we're trying to do something that is so important to them. With regards to enforcement, I'd like to reassure Councillor Mushtaq that the Council's Environment Enforcement team constantly respond to new reports of fly tipping, and where evidence is found, we'll progress the case and either serve a Fitzmiddleton notice or look to instigate legal proceedings against offenders. As a comparator, across Greater Manchester, Oldham Council has quite a good reputation for fly tipping enforcement, and the latest benchmarking statistics show that we are third out of the 10 local authorities at GM. This enforcement work going forward is regularly reported on a ward-by-ward basis, but it will also shortly be complemented by the 5 new environment marshals, whereby each cluster will have one environment marshal, and their role will be tasked to patrol the areas in that cluster and report any issues that are needed for enforcement action. Thank you.
You had the chance to vote her out, but you split the vote. Did you notice what she did there? She refused to answer how many prosecutions. She refused to answer how many prosecutions.
Conversation and the response so far, both in talking to residents about the town centre proposals and the neighbourhood meetings in Hollingwood, and Saddleworth Western Lees. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Taylor for her question. The Big Oldham Conversation is our new approach to engagement with people throughout Oldham and Saddleworth. And I'm pleased to say that it's been very successful so far. We're talking to residents and businesses across the borough to find out what they think about subjects such as littering, public transport, antisocial behaviour, and our plans for the new look of the town centre.
So you understand,
no topic is out of bounds.
To attend.
Our first leader session took place in October in Hollingwood, where residents asked us about issues including fly tipping, street cleaning and potholes, as well as talking to us about their other issues that are important to the communities that they live in. Tomorrow we're in Saddleworth Western Lees for the second Meet the Leader event. On Saturday we'll be in Spindles talking to people about the town centre regeneration plans. Then next Tuesday we're on our third Meet the Leader event, which is being held at Oldham Library for people living and working in Coldhurst and St Mary's. We'll be hosting sessions in wards across the borough, with every ward being included before the end of March 2022. And I'm really keen that as many residents, businesses and members can attend as possible to ensure that everyone has their say.
Council-funded re-election campaign by AROOJ SHAH.
I call
She is
on
using
Councillor
your council
Arnott
taxpayers'
to
money
to ask his question.
to fund
This
this
will
nonsense
be the last question
so she
in
can
this
get out and
section.
about and try and
Councillor
secure the
Arnott,
votes she
please.
needs to get
Thank you, Madam
re-elected.
Mayor. 2021 marks the centenary anniversary of the Royal British Legion, the foremost and most recognisable of any of the many charities that support our servicemen and women, and very importantly, our veterans. The work of the Legion over its 100 years has benefited literally hundreds of thousands of men, women and children, and the organisation is rightly held in the highest esteem and regarded as part of the very fabric of our proud nation. As we approach the 11th of November and the annual Remembrance Day commemorations, services and parades, could I, as a veteran myself, ask the Council Leader to provide an update on how the Council has engaged with, recognised and supported the Royal British Legion and the outstanding work that it does in this, its 100th year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Arnott, for your question. Oldham Council have graciously agreed for the Greater Manchester County Conference to be held in the Council Chamber on the 22nd of January 2022. This would have taken place in 2021, however, as you understand, COVID has stopped this. This will mean that all branches will be invited to attend. An officer of the Council, who is the Chadderton Branch Secretary of the Royal British Legion Branch Community Support Officer, and a member of the Greater Manchester County Committee approached the Royal British Legion to hold a meeting in Oldham, and this was voted on and agreed, and we are looking forward to hosting this meeting in the north of Manchester for the first time in many years. We have several branches in Oldham, and they go across Chadderton, Lees, Oldham, Royton, Saddleworth and Sean Crompton, which, Madam Mayor, I believe you will be formally reopening on the 11th of November at the Central Hall in Newton Street, Shaw. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah. The next part of this section is questions on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Chadderton to second that Council notes the minutes of the Cabinet as circulated. Councillor Shah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Chadderton.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members who are not Cabinet members wish to ask a question on any of the Cabinet minutes? Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I just refer to, in the Green Book, page 41, and it's agenda item 8, which relates to Towns Fund grant acceptance. So congratulations on the bid and receiving the £24.4 million. That, as the report tells us, is to be split evenly between Tommyfield Market, Making Space for Live Performance, Northern Routes and Flexible Workspace. Now, these are 4 big capital projects, and as we've already heard tonight, the experience of this council is that a project of this size either fails to materialise, completes in a fundamentally different guise to what it was envisaged, or goes grossly over budget. Does the relevant Cabinet member believe that we will be able to deliver these projects without any of the material deficiencies as I've just outlined, bearing in mind the advice given to us last year by the peer review group, guarding us against being over-ambitious, particularly in the area of capital projects? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Gloucester for his question. They will, because they're all in the capital programmes, so they're all costed. But if we weren't confident, we wouldn't have put forward those plans. And we acknowledge that people are concerned. I can understand where that comes from. This is why we are having conversations, continuously consulting, and making sure that everything is on board. I would really value, though, if members across the chamber can now help us and join us in reinstilling confidence in our residents and helping us to make them understand that this is something that is for them. them and about them, and it will be guided
She
by
wants
them
other
instead
people
of
to
using
take
every opportunity they
responsibility,
can to make
so when it goes
poor
wrong, she can say it
political
was
gains.
everyone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, I
Absolute
believe I've got a
disgraceful.
right to reply to
Absolute
that.
disgraceful. How many chicken shops?
A supplementary question or observation is permitted as long as it relates to the original question. It says here, Madam Mayor.
Yes, you tell
I'd
them.
like to ask the Leader of the Council why she thinks that question that is of great concern to a lot of people, particularly in relation to finance, and in particular by the independent...
That's not a question on the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Well...
No, he's doing well. Brilliant.
Independent peer review group raised the issue. I've raised it again. And if that's a poor question, then I'm very sorry, Madam Mayor.
See, there you go. Brilliant.
I've responded, and
ask
I can go
a
to and
question.
fro if that's what Councillor Gloucester wants, but it's not appropriate.
Of course it's appropriate. The wasting of £24 million of our money, borrowing money, is appropriate.
It might keeps going off on its own.
How is
the
it
final
not
part of
appropriate?
this section is
How is
questions
that not
on
appropriate?
joint
Wanting to
arrangements
know
and partnerships.
why are you
I
doing
call on
this
the
when the advice
spokespersons
was not to
move
do this?
The minutes.
Why are you borrowing
GM
money?
Waste and
can you
Recycling
guarantee you're not going to blow
Councillor
it like you've blown
Davis.
everything else? And she refuses to answer it. You saw the outrage. You heard the outrage.
GM
the mayor
Health
tried
and
to block
Care
it.
Board,
And how
Councillor
dare you?
Chong.
How dare you? Vote
Health
her
and
out.
Wellbeing Board,
You've only got one
Councillor
option here,
Marie
people. Vote
Bashforth.
her out.
Move, Madam Mayor.
You've got to
Greater
vote
Manchester
her
Transport Committee, Councillor Briggs.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. GMCA, Councillor Shah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Myocare, Councillor Steve Bashforth.
Move, Madam Mayor.
National Park Authority, Councillor McLaren.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members of the Council have a question on these minutes? I have had advance notice of questions, and I call on Councillor Torr to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question on GMCA minutes of the meeting held on 25th of June 21, page 91, minutes GMCA 114/21, Clean Air Plan update. Can the leader please clarify and explain the reasons for Oldham participating in Greater Manchester Clean Air Plan? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Shah to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Torr for her question. Working together through the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, local councils, including Oldham, are under direction from this government to introduce the Clean Air Plan and subsequent Clean Air Zone in the shortest possible time. This is to comply with legal nitrogen dioxide limits on local roads. All Greater Manchester authorities, that's the 9 Labour ones and the 1 Conservative one in Bolton, have approved the Greater Manchester Clean Air Plan and Category C Clean Air Zone because we have no choice but to act. Not only because we have been told to do so by government, but also because we know that many people in our city region are suffering ill health and even early death due to dirty air.
So that
However,
is what you
Madam
call,
Mayor, the funding
another
package
planted
provided by
question
the government
by
is significantly
Yasmin
less than
Tour,
required to
Councillor
install the infrastructure
and it allows
needed,
AROOJ SHAH. You
support
can see
local
she's
businesses
uncomfortable
that may be
ground here.
affected, and to
You can
pay
see
for
that
the
for
running
yourself.
of the
She's
scheme by the
uncomfortable
government,
ground here.
meaning that
She's
once
reading a
again, Madam Mayor, the cost is
pre-prepared
left to be
script
picked up by
and
those
she's
who live
happy
and
to
work in
rant
Greater
out.
Manchester.
So this is
Alongside
what they
other
like
Greater Manchester
doing.
leaders,
You
I
can
am
see that.
continuing to lobby government for fair funding
Nothing
for the
about
running of
waste
this scheme.
disposal site.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely linked.
Thank you.
The
I call on
toxic tower,
Councillor
the
Hamlet
height of
to
the
ask a
civic
question.
centre hasn't gone away.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine is in relation to Health and Wellbeing Board, 22 of the 6th at 21. Item 8, pages 2-3, Health Watch Oldham report. COVID-19, your health and care experiences report. With reference to the Health Watch report, 2 issues that are repeatedly raised by constituents with elected members are 1, the difficulty in actually getting through to a medical centre reception staff by telephone with long wait times, with long wait times, calls frequently being cut off and calls not being returned. 2, the inability of patients to actually access in-person appointment with GPs. What is the Health and Wellbeing Board doing to address these issues of real public concerns with medical professionals and surgery staff And when can our constituents expect to see real improvements in the service? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is this going to be Councillor Chowan or Councillor Bashforth? Councillor Chowan, please.
First of all, thank you to Councillor Hamlet. I need to make you aware that this issue is not under remit of Oldham Council. This is under the remit of NHS Oldham, and we have asked them to provide a detailed response, and I will share with Councillor Hamlet. However, I do feel like it's important to say that this is not a localized issue only. This is a national issue which has multiple reasons, including cuts to the funding. My colleague might have noticed only 2 or 3 days ago an article published in Guardian where our health secretary admits that they would not be able to fulfill their pledge of providing 6,000 GPs, which they promised as a manifesto during the
okay, so it's got nothing to do with the council. So the question had nothing to do with the council. The answer's got nothing to do with the council.
However,
but Dr. Chowan will go on. So I will remind you all.
Thank you.
I've got lights, cameras,
I call on Councillor Al-Hamdani to ask a question.
So if you find this of value, and sorry, at one point there's about 80 people watching.
With
I'm
regards
looking
to
at
the
now,
Greater
and there have been
Manchester Transport Committee on
262 of
the
you.
20th
Right,
August,
262
GMTC
of you, so,
4221, page 72 of the Green
buy
Book.
me a samosa,
On the electric
keep
vehicle
my
charging
lights on,
network,
I would be
there's
very,
plans for the
very
new Clean Air
grateful.
Zone, which Councillor Toole
You're
referenced, to
clearly
launch in
using
May
this service and you're
2020.
clearly finding it of
It's
value.
critical to ensure we
If
have
all
enough
it
electric
is to
vehicle
get
charging
your
points in
ranting
place to
out,
support
such
existing
as
and new electric
Amanda,
vehicle
so,
owners. It is estimated we will need 3,000 public chargers by 2025, 4 years away. We only have 323 in place at present. There are only plans to add another 54 next year. Most of those are the slower chargers, not the high quality, faster ones that we actually need. We wouldn't have a public charging network in place in 50 years' time, let alone in 4.
So this
with
is
this
about,
lack of action,
points
drivers
for
will
cars.
have no means to move to sustainable transport. The Clean Air Zone will be all stick and no carrot. Could the Cabinet member responsible please tell me what is being done to install more electric vehicle charging points more quickly in this borough and to put more pressure on the Greater Manchester Mayor and the combined authority?
So he's been complaining, they've all been complaining that people haven't got money to eat.
I call on Councillor Briggs to
£20
respond.
put in universal credit, blah, blah, blah. Yeah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So how many people
I've not
have
had any
got the
prior
money to
notice
go out
of
and buy
this
brand new
question,
cars
Madam
with
Mayor,
electric
so
charging?
I will give
Do you see
Councillor
the
Andani
contradiction in all of this?
written
It's bollocks, isn't it? Absolute
response
bollocks.
to his question. Thank you.
Councillor Shah has indicated she's got some information on this.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Hamdani, for your question. Electrical vehicle charging points in Greater Manchester are provided by many different operators. I think it's pronounced B.F, and that's the Greater Manchester's publicly owned network, and it's owned and coordinated by Transport for Greater Manchester on behalf of all the 10 Greater Manchester local authorities, including ours. 130 of the 360 public charging points already available in GM are BF charging points. To help deliver the 3,000 charging points GM needs by 2025, Transport for Greater Manchester has ambitious plans to invest in the BEV network in the short term while we're waiting for commercial operators to step up their networks. The combined authority has recently published a GM electrical vehicle charging infrastructure strategy, which will guide that investment. Funding has already been secured for some additional charges through the Clean Air Plan, with more rapid chargers and dedicated taxi chargers on the way. And Transport for Greater Manchester is asking for more government funding to deliver more points. We are, for example, awaiting the outcome of a bid to the government's on-street residential charge point scheme for a number of community charging hubs. And we're working with Transport for Greater Manchester to expand the BEV network in Oldham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Sykes to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's on GMTC 4321, page 9, which is Network Performance Report. I take no pleasure in having to raise this again, and I've raised it previously before, back in September 2018 and in November 2018, when a motion we tabled was carried unanimously. about the introduction of conductors onto our line, and the previous leader, Sir Owen Fielding, in September 2008, concluded with my observations that this was needed. There are, as that minute shows, and it was raised elsewhere at the transport meeting as well, there's increasing instances of crime and violence on the network, but particularly on our Rochdale, Oldham, Manchester line. Reports of children and young people taking lives into their hands by surfing the tram and riding on the couplings between carriages, and it is conceded that there's a minimum police presence on the network. So surely with passengers facing increased risks of attack, harassment, theft, are just not feeling safe and therefore not using this fantastic transport system, increasing risks of children and young people dying through acts of juvenile foolhardiness. We've seen only this week massive instances of ASB on the line elsewhere in Oldham, that we need to look at, improving public safety on trams. Now, if you don't want to call them conductors and call them something else, that's fine by me. But we need a physical, uniformed presence to assist the honest travelling public, to tackle fare dodgers and to tackle the ASB that is rife on this line, that is just stopping ordinary travelling citizens getting about their business. And, if we're going to win the argument about public transport and getting people out of their cars, our Metrolink needs to be safe. And at the moment, the Rochdale, Oldham and Manchester link line, and your own members spoke about it at the meeting, is perceived as not being, and somebody needs to do something about it. And we've been talking about it now for 3 or 4 years, and the situation does not improve, Madam Mayor.
Lad's got a point.
Calling Councillor Briggs to respond.
Lad's got a point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Councillor Sykes will well know, I echoed his concerns at the last Transport of Greater Manchester meeting when I concurred with the fact that we need some sort of presence on the trams. There's plenty of violence, like he says, right?
Okay,
I
so
did
this is just
stress
navel
that it
gazing.
was from
Yes,
the
we all
Manchester
agree there's a
boundary
problem. We've
right
agreed
to
there's a
Rochdale.
problem for 3 years or 4 years.
Councillor Burke, as the Rochdale councillor, agreed with me at that meeting.
What the Lib Dems are doing?
And still waiting a response as to what
the Lib Dems
the Transport of Greater Manchester officers are going to do about it, Madam Mayor.
Asking questions on minutes that they've read. So the way council meetings work is that there's committee reports produced and you get to only ask questions on those.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And they're consistently asking those questions.
I refer to GMCA 25th of the 6th,
Where are the Tories? Was Graham Sheldon and his team asking these questions?
Page 20
nowhere to be
21
seen.
Brownfield
Absolutely nowhere to be seen.
Chancellor Rishi Sunak announced the most welcome and much needed establishment of a 1.8 billion fund to build around 160,000 homes on Brownfield sites as part of the funding settlement for the Department of Levelling Up Houses and Communities in last Wednesday's budget. Obviously, more money for brownfield means less pressure on our irreplaceable green belt. So my hope is that some of this money will come Oldham's way. Prior to the budget, the Greater Manchester Mayor revealed how much extra Greater Manchester was going to receive for public transport. So has he now revealed how much of his brownfield housing land fund will be coming to our city region as well? Thank you.
Calling Councillor Shah to respond, please.
It's Councillor Roberts, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Gloucester is right that there was a headline announcement in the recent budget of £1.8 billion to support housing supply. This included £300 million locally led grant funding that will be distributed to mayoral combined authorities and local authorities to unlock smaller brownfield sites. We have not received any information from the department as to how much Greater Manchester will receive. There was also an announcement of £1.5 billion funds to regenerate underused land and deliver transport links and community facilities, again with further information to follow regarding allocation and bidding. As we would expect, both GMCA will do as much as everything they can to secure as much of this grant funding as possible for the region. And the Council will also seek to secure funding to help support delivery of the much needed local housing supply in line with a brownfield first approach.
Oh, so you've got a brownfield first approach, but you're building on greenfield all over the place, and you've handed over land.
So we now move on to item 11, notice
land.
of administration business. Motion 1, I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Chatterton to second the motion. Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems like every week there's news of another violent act perpetrated against women. It feels so common that as a society we've almost normalised it, accepted that that's just how things are as another woman or girl is attacked, raped or murdered.
No one thinks that. It's disgraceful.
The process of normalising violence against women and girls has been going on for generations. As women, we constantly have to think about how we get home in the evening, whether someone has put something in our drink, or whether someone we live with is about to lose their temper. We just seem to accept that for half of our population, life has a constant drumbeat of fear. Fear of attack, fear of being judged, and fear of not being believed, and fear of having nowhere to run.
If you genuinely believe this, and I do,
when the pandemic started,
of course we all
the force of the state was directed at tackling it. When it comes to violence against women and girls, it often seems like even the smallest change is just too much. Stripping our society of the misogyny that poisons it will be a long-term process. We need our boys and our young men to understand that it's their job to make violence and domestic abuse unacceptable, and it must become unthinkable. But until that day, Madam Mayor, there is plenty we can do right now to take a stand. For many, the most shocking element of Sarah Everard's murder was that the perpetrator was a police officer. It's the police's job to stop violence, yet here someone who was supposed to be a protector was actually the aggressor. The statistics about domestic violence and sexual assault and how rarely those perpetrators are punished are very well known. It's clear that for many women, the criminal justice system isn't seen as being on our side. There's also an exception of poor treatment that means many don't come forward, and even those who do rarely get anywhere. We heard earlier this evening from Chief Superintendent Chris Bowen about some of the changes that are going to take place at GMP. And for me, Madam Mayor, they can't come too soon. For someone experiencing abuse, extracting yourself from that situation can often be hugely difficult. We owe it to every victim and survivor to do everything we can to make it as easy and as painless as we can. But whilst it's vital, every officer is equipped with understanding and compassion to support women and girls who come forward.
Okay, so you know what, I have a problem with this nonsense.
With deep knowledge and skills to make sure perpetrators are brought to justice. That's where having more specialists in GMP will make a big difference.
That says, because you're white,
investing
you're
in those
automatically
specialists
a racist,
also sends a message.
And we've got to teach
it
you
says
to be
we're
a
finally
non-racist.
taking this as seriously as we should be.
You're privileged, you're white, you're automatically
Tackling
a racist.
violence against women and girls has to be something for everyone and every public
so
service.
Automatically rape and
if we work in silos, people fall through the cracks. And we need an approach that covers the whole of Oldham.
It is.
On domestic abuse, we're doing just that. This week, we're publishing a consultation on a new domestic abuse strategy that sets out how we will work across our whole partnership, including the council, the police, housing providers, and most importantly, the voluntary sector.
This has got nothing to do.
It's so important that we get this right. It has to fit our borough's needs and be responsive to the realities of life as women in Oldham. So in this motion, Madam Mayor, we're asking for councillor support. As politicians, we'll have differences of opinion on how services should be resourced or function. But we should all agree that domestic abuse is abhorrent and we want the best possible approach to defeating it. The more voices we have feeding into this strategy, the more effective it will be. So please do everything you can to get it out to residents and organisations you know involved in this vital work. It's time for all of us to stop looking away from the violence women and girls face. This is one action all of us can take. So let's stand together on this and get to work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shah.
So
Councillor
these
Chatterton,
motions are a waste
please.
of time, aren't they?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
They're just
Everybody in
banner-waving
this
nonsense.
room, and no doubt across the whole of Oldham, will have known for as long as they can remember,
What are you going
at
to
least
do?
in vague terms, that violence
What are you
against
going
women
to
is an
do?
issue.
There's never anything to do.
Be it the
You're
fact
just
that we know that
banner-waving.
over 2 women every week die at the hands of someone they know, or the fact that calls to domestic violence helplines spike when the England football team plays. These are things that have been talked about for
Problem with
years and
abuse
years.
against women.
What has been brought out into the light in recent
The
years
starting
is just how
point
finely tuned
of
misogyny,
saying
violence,
men and boys
the
need to
oppression
be
of
taught
women
not to
is
be
woven
rapists
into nearly all
isn't gonna
aspects of
date
our
us
society.
anywhere. Stop talking
The murder of
nonsense.
Sarah
Stop
Everard starts a
talking
national
nonsense.
debate,
It's
and in
exactly
the same way that
Jack.
the murder of
It's
Sabina
virtue
Nessa
signalling.
did, this was because these murders spoke directly to women up and down the country, and it spoke to their worst fears. As a young woman growing up, we are taught early on to be careful and to be vigilant and to think about our behaviour and to plan for an unknown violent act that may befall us by a violent man.
So why is
Often
Jim
this isn't a conscious
McMahon,
thing,
your
and
mate, the
certainly my mum
MP,
didn't
the
sit me down
samosa
at
nibbler,
16, 17 or
regularly
18 as I was
meeting
planning to go out
exclusively with
clubbing in
groups of
Oldham, which sadly
males
I'm too old for
with
now.
Asian men?
But she didn't
Why
say,
is Jim
right,
McMahon,
Amanda,
the
you need to
MP,
prepare to enter a world that
exclusively
is full of men
meeting with
that have the
groups
propensity
of
to
Asian
harass,
men?
stalk, assault, rape or murder you? But what she did say was, you shouldn't walk down a dark path on your own. Or you should ring me or your dad if you're walking home and you've got off the bus and it's dark. And that I should always text my friends to say I've got in safe when I'm the last one in the taxi. And often when you thought about it, you didn't think this was abnormal. You think this is quite sensible, this is reasonable. But actually it's not reasonable. And it is abnormal, because why should only 50% of the population modify their behaviour in this way, and why should we have to do it? Why should we as women have to change our lives to accommodate the fact that some men can't or don't want to control their violent urges? The problem is not women, it is men. And how many times do we have to say this before anything changes? I mentioned earlier that over 2 women die each week at the hands of men. And since the death of Sarah Everard, nearly 90 women in this country have been murdered where the prime suspect has been a man. So in the space of 32 weeks, we've already lost another 90 women in this country who have been murdered. 2 of those women were from Oldham. And I want to finish by remembering those 2 women. The first was Imogen Bowershuk. Imogen was a 29-year-old woman who was a carer who lived in East Oldham. She had a young son, and she was beaten and stabbed to death by her abusive ex-partner in her own home. She had sought help from GMP 2 weeks prior to her death, but obviously to little or no avail.
Okay, so I
The
agree with her.
second woman was
I'm
Susan
agreeing with her.
Booth,
I'm
a
agreeing with
62-year-old
Amanda
healthcare
Chaddington.
assistant
What's
who
happened
worked
there
at
is
the Royal Oldham
disgraceful.
Hospital.
Yeah.
She lived in Shaw.
And the
Her
police failed her.
ex-husband waited
So
outside
why
her house,
were none
knowing
of these
when she was going to get home from
councillors
work after she'd finished her shift
challenging the
at
most senior
hospital?
police officer at the time
He
to
waited
do
on
more
that street in
to tackle
broad
domestic
daylight, and
violence
as she got out of her
and
car,
support vulnerable
he
women?
murdered her with an
We'd
axe.
all be with them.
What,
We'd
a
all be
couple of
standing
miles from where we
alongside
are?
them and saying yes.
He was apparently upset about the
Why
sale of their
was
former
the
family home.
condemnation not
I've had a lot of conversations
expressed
lately with
when
other
the
women
most senior
about how
police
tiring
officer
it
was
is
there?
sometimes to be a woman at the minute, and about how nothing changes and we question whether things will actually ever get better. It is tiring and it is hard work, but we have to persevere because the dream has to be that one day the tide does turn. Misogyny is taken seriously, sexual and violent assault against women is treated as the life-changing crime it is, and that at some point society says enough is enough. But ultimately, we have to hope that one day we get less Imogens and less Susans. Thank you.
And I agree with her. I agree with her.
Thank you.
I don't want to see a single person
Does any
murdered in
member
our
wish to
country as a
speak? I have
cause
had,
of domestic violence and the
4
failure of the police to
indications, so
protect
I'll
them.
take Councillor Torr first, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I rise to support this motion. I would like to recite this poem.
Come on,
which
John,
I
we
have
can't have
written
that. This
on
is things like
subject,
this
and I wrote this poem this
that
morning.
makes it difficult for us as
Title
men,
of my
and the
poem
same as
is
well
No
as the
More.
racism stuff. We can't have that, mate. You can't teach women to pick beer. Come on,
No
mate.
more.
We can't do that.
Violence has so
inexcusable.
many ugly faces.
An attack is never
It
excusable.
has shameful history,
In any form. An attack
criminal
is never
background,
excusable.
no human or moral values.
You know better than that.
There is no place for this violence in society. I strongly condemn violence against women and young girls. I strongly disagree with violence culture. I will always stand up and speak against this shameful act. No more violence against women and girls. No more verbal abuse, no more physical abuse, no more sexual abuse. No
This
more
is now just
rapes,
gesture
no
politics,
more
isn't it?
murders, no
This
more
is now
acid
just gesture
attacks,
politics.
no more female genital mutilation, no more killer silence
Misogyny is
to
alive and
support
well
abuse,
in Oldham. And it's
no
alive
more
and well in the
violent
Labour
games,
Party.
no more
And
jokes
the
about
from
women,
the postal vote system,
no more
of how it's
pay
exploited,
differences for
to
women,
how the
no more
politicians endorse
self-created
male-only
obstacles
events.
to block employment
And
opportunities
if
for
you
women,
want to look
no
on
more age and
how you
gender
get to a
games
place
to
where
block
women are
opportunities for
treated
women.
unfairly,
No more means no more.
with inequity,
Why?
then we don't need to look
Enough
much
is
further
not being
than how
seen
the
as
politics
enough.
in our town is played out,
Our
of
government,
which these people are
our
responsible
lawmakers,
and remain silent.
our law protectors, our healers, our community leaders, our religious leaders, our media.
It's just gesture politics,
Why
Jack.
take soft approach? Why every crime against women gets hidden under mental health and files gets closed? Why are you not stopping this totally? Why? There is a continued letdown for centuries. You know what? It hurts. It hurts. It brings lonely
here we go.
feelings. It brings pain and betrayal.
John, a very good evening. I hear
shatters
you
our
standing in Hollywood,
takes
John.
away
Is that
meaning
true?
of
I've heard it
life
on the
from us.
grapevine and indirectly from you. I
It
wish you
breaks
well, mate. If there's
trust
anything
on
any of us can do,
relationships.
do let us know.
no more.
And
Yes, I mean
she should
no
scare
more.
you, Denise, because
We stand
Councillor
together.
Shirjan Sultan
We will fight
was
together.
a senior
We
member
will
of
rise
something called
together.
YMO, the Young Muslim
We will shine
Organisation.
together.
YMO,
Oh,
let's just say
abused women
YMO
in
are
past
on the
and
government's list of
I
organisations
swear.
to watch for
I swear on
because
your
of their
graves,
Islamist
on your
views.
brutally murdered,
And
chopped
it'd
and
be
burnt
interesting
bodies,
what the
on your
YMO
cold
position
ashes,
would be on violence against
on
women,
your raped,
or whether
abused
they'd want to
bodies.
speak out against it.
I will not forget you all. I will always
Has she finished
speak
yet?
for you. I will always write
Sorry,
for
I'm
you.
enduring this. I'm
I will
enduring this, so
always do
please,
my bit, my best.
to the
I carry a
292,
pen,
93,
and
we
I will
might get up
carry
to
on
300 at
writing.
this rate. That'll be interesting.
not
300 of you
rest.
wanting to watch
And that's
a
a pinky
council
promise,
meeting.
darlings. No
Wow.
more violence against women and
Wow.
girls. No
Yes,
more.
buy me a
no
coffee.
More. I mean, no
Have
more.
a look. Buy me
I
a
urge
coffee.
everyone
I'm having a
to
look.
support this motion.
One person's bought me a coffee. 3 hours, 2 hours
Thank
on
you,
here.
Councillor
Come on,
Shaw.
people.
Calling
Come on.
Councillor Mushtaq, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very emotive topic, as highlighted here. It's a subject where
Oh,
we look
God,
to our
I'm not listening
leaders,
to this
be that
idiot.
political, faith,
Racist.
community or civic, where we look
Racist.
to individuals and whole communities, where we campaign for policy changes, for behavioural changes, for attitudinal changes, for societal changes, for workplace changes, and so much more, so we can bring
I'm
about the
cleverer than the
change
others.
that's desired
I'm reading
and
off an
required.
iPad. I bet
The
you
chances
can't
are we
tell.
all know
Look
someone
at me.
who has been affected
I've
by this
typed
issue.
it all up so I can
I'm
read
often
it off an
contacted by
iPad.
women requesting assistance with housing or schooling because they've walked out of an abusive relationship. Why violence against women isn't the preserve of any one culture, religion or race, and it certainly isn't something men are born with.
I told
I
you
do
you'd get the
believe,
race
as
lot
the
in.
motion highlights,
I told you.
that factors such as the growth in social media, pornography
I
and
told
general
you you'd
cultural
get the
mindsets
racist
across
bit
the
in.
world
It isn't
towards
just
women
the
have
Muslims.
contributed to the ongoing environment. We are all aware of the challenges women have faced and overcome historically. We all know that nature was once a major barrier to women progressing, and albeit to a lesser extent, continues to be. That's the point, Madam Mayor. We have this knowledge. And what use is knowledge if it can't be used to bring about positive societal change? If our children, who are not born with this trait, are walking out of our schools as young men and continuing this trend, this is a failure for all of us.
Okay, Mushtaq,
Madam
so
Mayor,
I agree with you.
You and I
So
will be attending a number of remembrance
Muslim
events
boys'
this
school
month.
or Muslim
What are we
girls' schools, a
remembering?
number of
Who
Muslim
are we
girls'
remembering?
schools to
What
be
did
set
those
up
brave
in
souls,
Oldham?
men,
Why is
women
Oldham
and
Council
children
endorsing
make
and
the ultimate
supporting
sacrifice
the
for?
separate education
They
of
gave their
Muslim
today
girls
for our
where they
tomorrow.
can be taught
As
separately
we remember them,
and
people
taught
of
to
today's
be
society,
subservient? Why
the very
is that?
society we enjoy because of their sacrifice, should reflect on what they would be feeling if our today consists of women being afraid to walk home alone at night and women being killed simply because they are women. I'm guessing that they'd say that this isn't what they made the
Baz,
ultimate
come back
sacrifice
with
for.
your real name.
Madam Mayor, the motion
all of the
states that
rest of that
71% of women
You're
of
just
all
talking
ages in the
absolute
UK have
nonsense, mate.
experienced
Absolute nonsense.
some form of sexual
Pettiness and
harassment in a
insult.
public
Have you
space.
heard
I don't believe
what has been
71%
going
of
on in
men
the
are responsible
council
for this
chamber?
statistic.
There's a
For those
reason
that are
why
not,
people
we all
are
have a
angry
responsibility
and
to
upset.
call this out
And that is
whenever
because
and wherever we
of the
see or hear
contempt
it,
in
no
which
matter how
they, as
trivial
members of the
it may
public, are
appear
being
to be.
treated by this group of
Together, we must
politicians.
create an environment where those
And to
that
try
hold
and
such
twist it
views
around,
feel the
tell your
discomfort
mates
of
in
these
the Labour
views and
Party,
thoughts.
Raja Mir
An
Sethar.
environment where they feel out of place and where it's obvious to all that there is no place for such misogyny in our today. Please support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have been thinking a lot recently about a girl I was at school with. Her name was Ariadne Dawson. She was a year older than me and decided to spend a year in France as an au pair before going to university. She never made it that far. She was raped and murdered in France. A picture on the news at 10 is a terrible way to find this out. Thousands more women and girls have died because of male violence since 1975, and many more hundreds of thousands
Denise.
have been sexually assaulted or subjected to domestic
So they want
violence
to pass
or
this
coercive
motion, okay?
behaviour.
So they
We
haven't got
even
time
have
to answer
names for new
questions
types of sexual assault. Upskirting, for example,
public
sounds
interest
relatively
and stuff.
harmless, but
And they
is,
want
when
to
you think
pass a
about it,
motion
deeply
condemning
unpleasant,
violence against
intrusive,
women.
and completely unacceptable. What does all this
You
say
don't
about the
need
kind
to
of society
pass
we
a
live
motion
in?
condemning
I'm sure
violence
every woman
against
in this meeting and watching us online has a story to tell about sexist name-calling,
And then
feeling
talk for an
uncomfortable
hour
listening to some
about it.
so-called jokes or banter, feeling
It's just a
unsafe when
joke.
walking home or in a public space by themselves.
We all condemn
We need to start
violence
thinking about
against
how
women. We
society
condemn
treats women and
violence against
girls,
everyone.
and this starts at home and at school. If home
But in
isn't
a
a
council
safe
chamber,
place
you're
and
gonna pass a
school
motion.
isn't
The question
either,
isn't passing
then
a
we have a
motion.
problem,
So
and
what
I
are you
think
going to
that we
do
do.
about it?
Oldham
Is the
Council
council
receives between
going to
7
get
and
rid of
17
two of its
applications
communications
each
officers
week from
and fund
households
more
made
money for
homeless by
domestic
domestic
violence,
abuse, and too
refugees,
many of our children
or
looked
staff?
after
Is the
have
council
seen
going
or
to challenge the
experienced
police
domestic
who
abuse.
refuse to protect
Earlier this
vulnerable
year, the
women?
website Everyone's Invited exposed 16,000 allegations, overwhelmingly from females, of rape
Gesture
culture,
politics.
harassment
You're
and
right.
abuse in our schools,
It's,
naming
that's exactly what it is.
2,500
It's one of those
schools
Obama
and
speeches.
colleges. In a recent study of 554 university students, 63 admitted to rape, sexual assault and other aggressive forcible acts. There are no easy solutions or quick fixes,
And of course,
but part of the
listen,
answer must
in the
be in
background
how we
of
bring
all
up
of
our
this
boys and what
is
all
the
of us are
grooming
potentially
and
exposed
gang
to on
rape
the
of
internet.
our town's children.
Another
Girls,
survey
and the
found
main
that
girls, the
48%
grooming
of
and
11
gang
to
rape of our
16-year-olds are
town's
seeing
children,
porn online.
and they sat on their
Easy
hands
access to pornography
while Sean
skews
Fielding claimed it was
understanding of what
barefaced
is a
lies.
healthy sexual relationship.
They attacked
As
us
parents,
as
we need to be
racists
vigilant.
for raising
As
it.
citizens, we should
They sit
demand
on their
that our laws
hands
regulate
whilst this
online
report
porn and
is being covered
websites
up.
promoting skewed views about women and girls.
So
As
when it comes to the
individuals,
grooming and
we
gang
should
rape
call
of
out
working class
sexist and
white girls in our
misogynist
town,
behaviour. As
there was no motion.
councillors, we must ensure our services
There's
are
no
the best
motion
they can
condemning
be
it.
in protecting
There's no
women
motion
and girls.
condemning the
In the
predominantly
House of
Pakistani
Commons,
grooming
Jess
gangs.
Phillips reads out
In
the names
Oldham,
of
the
girls
same as
and women
Rochdale or
aged
everywhere else.
13
There's
and
no motion
over
there.
murdered
no
by
motion.
men every
In
year
fact,
on
they
International
hid it.
Women's Day.
They hid that
This
Rod
year, there were
Blythe
120
was convicted of
names
child
she
sex
read
exploitation offences.
I don't
CSE,
know how
convicted,
many
and they
others were
hid it.
murdered the year Ariadne was killed, but I do know that her death was one too
where
many.
was this motion then? Where was your outrage then?
Councillor
This is
Roberts.
just political
Councillor
posturing.
Al-Hamdani, please.
And it's disgraceful.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to commend the motion and thank you to everyone who's spoken so far, and I'm sure to everyone who's going to speak. I want to raise some of the positive things in this, but also concerns that go beyond this motion. I'm angry that we have a Prime Minister who thinks that misogyny should not be a hate crime. That he can turn around after all that we hear and say that that's not the solution. And similarly, that earlier this year there was a proposal to put in, and it was this council heard on it on the National Stalking and Domestic Violence Register, and the government agreed that they were going to put that into force, and then they turned round and said no, and it's wrong. And this motion talks about the APBG for UN Women, a parliamentary group, and the people who've experienced sexual harassment. And that group also said that only 40% of people report their abuse, and only 10% of people report their abuse to the police. That scares me. And one of the things that in the motion it talks about what we need to ask of Greater Manchester Police. I think we need to ask more of Greater Manchester Police than what's in this motion. Early last year, the IOPS system, the system for recording crimes in Manchester, one of the problems, when there were many problems, one of the problems was that only 50% of high-risk domestic abuse cases were being referred in some areas. And that's right, and that is the system we're still using. A month ago, the new Chief Constable said that we were a matter of weeks away from making a decision on whether we were going to fix it or replace it. Well, that's a year and a half after we're talking about these figures. So I completely agree with what we're asking of Greater Manchester, but we need to ask them more. In particular, we've discussed, as part of the work we're doing on education in this, and it's cross-party work, and I'm really grateful to the people who are reaching across political divides and working together on this. But there is a brilliant campaign in Scotland, that Guy campaign, which the police are part of. And it calls out people, it says, don't be that guy. And it's people on the street and it's police officers reaching out and saying, this is wrong. We should not be part of this. We should not let this carry on in the way that it is. So I would love to see Greater Manchester Police participate in the equivalent. Now, I mentioned the work that is being done cross-party, and I'd particularly like to thank some of the staff, not to sort of name individuals, but they are doing some phenomenal work in rolling out policies in schools across the borough to make sure that we do change education on this. And that is so important. And it is really important that as the men in this room, we are part of that. The council signed up to White Ribbon UK, I think, nearly 2 years ago. And I believe that the council is asking for both people in this chamber and people outside to be ambassadors for White Ribbon UK. And if you have the opportunity, if you are a man and you want this to change, please sign up. Thank you. Sorry, I've covered a number of topics. I think this is a really important motion. I totally support it. We need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to point out to Council that we have 10 minutes left in this section of the agenda, administration business, and we have another motion to deal with in this section. Calling Councillor Goodwin and then Councillor Williams has indicated. Just bear that in mind, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will keep it brief. Councillor Haldani has covered some of what I was going to say, because as an ambassador for the White Ribbon UK, I'm supporting this motion. I won't repeat what's already said, but I'd like to take the opportunity to speak about the White Ribbon UK. So White Ribbon UK is part of a global White Ribbon movement to end male violence against women. Now, I'm fully aware, and we're all fully aware, that survivors of violence are both male and female, and both male and females can be abusers. But as a man, I acknowledge, and I hope the men in this chamber also acknowledge, that the majority of domestic violence in the UK is perpetrated by males against females, and we have to be vocal in that acknowledgement. I'd like to take this opportunity to call on all men, as Councillor Hamdani has said, to visit whiteribbon.org.uk and take the pledge. Never commit, excuse, or remain silent about male violence against women. White Ribbon Day this year is 25th of November, so please go online, make the pledge, buy a white ribbon and wear it. Let's come together and say no to violence against women. Please support this motion.
Councillor Williams.
Cheers, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, thank you for letting me in so late. I didn't get a chance to indicate it, did I? Do you know, everybody, when you think about it, what is it in the mental set of a gentleman that thinks he can go and clobber a woman? Is it power? Is it the fact it's their ego? Or is it this insecurity that they thinks, no, I can do this and I can get away with it? And supposing that just by chance I did that to my partner, Bev, I get kicked in the part of my anatomy where no man would want to be kicked in, and I wouldn't walk for a week. I just wouldn't get away with it. I'd get hammered. But there's some ladies out there that just aren't in that position to go and do that, that really, really struggle. And you're thinking, the mental set of these individuals that just think they can get away with it.
This idiot's talking nonsense. This idiot has no understanding of the
turns up to this job. That perpetrator has done it. I can see he's done it. He's definitely done it. So get hold of him, fold him up, chuck him in the back of the van. Get him in the police station, bang him in the cell for a couple of hours, drag him out and say, you answer my question now and you tell me why you did that. You're a bully, you're a thug, you're a coward, an absolute coward.
I've said it many times, I'm not his fan. I've said it plenty of times, I'm not his fan.
While I'm talking to this guy, I say you need to just reflect on what you've done to these individuals, these women.
Really
well, supposing while you're reflecting on that, how would you feel if somebody did that to your mother?
Sam Al-Hamdani. It is.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
He spoke passionately. He spoke
Councillor Shah, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all for your contributions to this discussion on an issue that's so close to my heart. But after hearing the contributions tonight, I'm not surprised that it's so close to many of our hearts in here too. The strength of feeling on this issue is immense, and we must see and use this as a catalyst to drive every bit of change we can locally, while continuing to fight for changes in policing and in national policy that will drive down violence against women and girls.
By blaming
but I would, Madam Mayor, like to say that Councillor Sam Al-Hamdani is right, as change must come from the top. And whilst our Prime Minister downplays this issue, it says it's too big to deal with, we'll always struggle to drive the level of change that we need. But what we can commit to is doing everything we can locally and to continue shouting loudly nationally for change. And I'd like to end by saying, in a world full of Boris Johnsons, we need to see more people like Councillor Sam Al-Hamdani. And I want to thank everyone for your support. Thank you.
A cheap political point. She wants to score
so does Council agree the motion?
Boris
Those
Johnson's
in favour, please show.
Was raped.
Thank you.
Anyone against?
Matter
of public record. Boris Johnson's partner was raped.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We have 5 minutes left in this section for obviously very important motion. Does anybody want to make a suggestion as to what we do with this?
Madam Mayor, can we suspend this? I mean, it is a very important motion, Madam Mayor. Can we suspend the standing orders for about 10-15 minutes?
Well, which? Are you saying 10 or 15? 15 minutes. Have we got a seconder for that? Councillor Jabbar. Well, yeah. If you know, the first proposal was that we for an extension of 15 minutes. Was it Councillor Ahmad?
Oh, they have no idea.
Yeah. Did we have a seconder for that?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Sorry? Seconded. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Well, from where I'm sitting, that seems to be carried. Yeah, thank you. So we will go to motion 2, but bear in mind that we're in extension time now, so we must be really strict on speakers and so forth.
Well, if you never had that idiot get up and
Chief
talk.
Executive to change the seconder of this motion, and it has been agreed. Therefore, I call on Councillor Jabbar to move and Councillor Ahmed to second the motion. Councillor Jabbar, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to colleague for extending the time on this. Obviously, this is a very important topic like the previous motion. Madam Mayor, in August of this year, the International Panel on Climate Change published their latest report. The UN General Secretary called the report Code Red for Humanity, stressing the irrefutable evidence of human influence on the climate.
Do you see how
Those
many
people who
empty
used to
chairs and
deny
seats
that
there are?
carbon
People have
emission
gone.
from
People
burning
have
fossil
walked out.
fuels
They'll come
are
back,
causing
but do
climate
you see how many
change
empty
are
seats
now
there are?
saying that the cost of action is too high. Madam Mayor, if the cost of action is too high, it pales into comparison of the cost of inaction. We could see the end of global climatical condition, which has enabled humanity to flourish. The IPCC report makes it clear that it is critical that we act now to avoid worse consequences. It is crystal clear that if humanity is to address this challenge, every country, every business, every citizen on the planet needs to take this issue seriously. And I believe that people in Oldham do understand this. Every country is at a different stage of development and can make different contribution. And we hope and expect that world leaders can come to an agreement at COP26.
And this is a contradiction, isn't it? If everyone can take responsibility,
but also the benefit
and
of decisive
COP26 I
action
talked about
on climate.
natural woodland and deforestation.
Here
If
in the
everyone
UK,
can take
we
responsibility,
welcome the government's
why is
new
it
net zero
in Oldham
strategy.
that these people
However,
are taking
if the UK is
decisions
to have
that
any
is
chance
destroying
at
our
all
green
of
land,
achieving this
our green
objective,
spaces,
it will need to be
when there is no need?
local authorities who
Why?
lead action
Do you
and
see
delivery.
constant contradictions?
Here in Oldham,
Let's talk about
we have
violence
adopted
against
our
women,
Green New
but
Deal in
ignore
March 2020.
the grooming and gang
despite
rape
the
of young
first
girls in our own town.
COVID-19 lockdown
Let's talk
beginning
about
only 1
climate
week
change
later,
and the need
we have made
to do more,
significant progress
but
and
ignore
have some
our
real
council's
exciting
decisions to
schemes
build on
and
our green
initiatives
belt and on
in
our
the
green
pipeline.
spaces and destroy our
Our
wildlife.
achievements so far has been recognized in a new report published by the Centre for Local Economic
these
Strategies,
people,
citing Oldham
they need
as
to be
best
voted
practice.
out. They just
But we
need to
can
be
only
voted
achieve
out.
so much
It's no more
on our own.
complicated than that. You can
With
see
all
what
of
they're
these
doing.
financial
And
and
since
other
we
challenges
started
we
doing
face,
these council
we need
meetings and
central
follow them like
government
this,
to
and I
give
will analyse
local
it
authorities the resource we need
and feedback
to deliver
on it
net
on
zero.
a separate post.
Cut energy
But,
bills for
you know,
our residents, our businesses, and create good quality
It's just,
green jobs and training
these
opportunities.
people are just talking nonsense.
Only local authorities have the knowledge
And look at him.
and the know-how
He's
to deliver
reading off a scrap
just
of paper again,
transition
word for
to
word.
ensure that both the negative impacts from climate change and
yes,
the benefits
Denise,
from climate
sooner or
action
later
are felt
he'll blame
equally
the government.
across the
It's
local
Abdul, you know, like our AROOJ Shah's
That's why in our
go-to
motion
position
this
is
evening,
racist.
we're calling
SAHID
on
MUSHTAQ
government
is
to
just a
let
more
us
aggressive
take
way
the
of calling
lead.
you a racist.
We know what
Jabbar's
kind of
go-to
projects
position is,
will work
it's
in
the
Oldham.
government's fault.
And if they give us the chance, we happily accept the responsibility. This is an opportunity. It's what levelling up should be all about. We have projects like the town centre heat network ready to go if government is willing to fund it.
See? He wants more money.
Projects like
He
this
wants
and the
more money.
northern routes can be transformational in terms
Northern
of our
routes.
carbon output.
Northern
also
Routes is
as
destroying
job
the green
creators.
spaces. You've seen
They
it
will
all,
make
people.
Oldham
You've seen
a
that
better
lad put
place
up the
to live
videos.
and contribute to the global challenge we all face. And as far as the amendment is concerned, Madam Mayor, we accept most of the things they've said in there, and we're actually doing almost all of the things they've said, except for the 20-mile-per-hour zone and the planning issue. For that reason, I'm not going to be able to accept that. I'm sorry, but I do appreciate the support and the concern Lib Dem have on this issue, and I'd like to record my thanks to them for all the important challenge they raised to this administration. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks for the opportunity, and thank you to the Council for agreeing the extra time. For me, this is a very important item, and it's a trip down the memory lane for me. Because in 1996, when I became chair of the Environment Services Committee, this was the first item I had to deal with. It was a standard item on every committee agenda. I think Councillor Sachs might bear me out. Oldham Council, in even those days, was discussing how to save the environment, and we were the kind of market leaders throughout all the councils. So, Madam Mayor, it's very disturbing that after all that time, and even in this day and age, when we regularly endure environmental disasters, floods, mudslides, rising temperatures, never-ending wildfires, rising sea levels, there are still some leaders in the world and in this country who do not take this threat seriously. And hence, we need to convince them and need for this motion. One Tory parliamentarian a few days ago said that achieving net zero carbon target will make no difference, and it's simply gesture politics. He said that becoming carbon neutral is futile. That is a Tory parliamentarian. These are the people who are running the country. If they do not believe in this looming disaster, danger that is around the corner,
we all agree
how can we
that,
expect
this
them
is just more
to do something
politics
about
nonsense,
it?
isn't it? Yes, John, on more important matters.
Not just one MP.
When he went
the
around,
Chancellor didn't want to be left behind, so he
witnesses
joined
came
in.
forward, John. If
And
they
it's
got the
national airline
votes, they'd be
passenger
getting
duty
council houses, and the
on
new
domestic
council
flights
houses were scheduled to
caused
be
an
built
international
in and
embarrassment
around the civic
just a
centre,
few
so
days before
into the town
the
centre.
conference was going to take
So he's been promising
start
them
in
houses,
Scotland.
John, hasn't he? So it's not just me who's heard it. Yeah.
Domestic flights
You can
cause
see.
a lot more damage to environment than the long-haul
You can
flights.
see.
That's what the experts say.
This is just
That's not all. We're still subsidizing fossil
Can
fuel
people see
companies.
how broken our democracy is
And the
and how
amount of
broken our town
damage
is
they are doing to the environment.
when this is just a facade? The
And
place
that's
where
not
the
all.
council does its
PM has
business once
refused to
every
rule
6
out
weeks
new oil
in
fields
plain
in
view
North
of
Sea.
all of you.
And how is that
just-
going to contribute to carbon
it's just-
neutral targets?
It's not even pantomime, is it?
And
You'd
that's the
walk
Prime
out, wouldn't
Minister
you? It's not
who
even
talks about
pantomime.
1 minute to midnight on the
It's a
environmental
joke.
disaster
It's an
plan.
absolute joke.
So he preaches one thing and practices another. Madam Mayor, the record to date is abysmal. They promised 600,000 homes were to benefit from Green Homes Initiative.
Oh, here we go. Let's blame the
Some
Tories.
complain that
Let's blame the
600,000 were not
Let's
high
blame
enough
the
a number.
government. Everything is blaming the
But they
government.
only
When is
managed
this
to achieve
council going to take
50,000 homes
responsibility for its actions?
Throughout the country,
Instead
they
of
missed-
continuously blaming
they
the
achieved
government.
2.5% of their own target. So they missed 97.5% of their own very low target. That's their achievement. That's their track record to date. This resolution talks about £100 billion to be found worldwide to fund the environmental schemes and save the environment. This was originally agreed at the Paris Agreement, and it was to be achieved by 2020. So we already missed the target, and we're now talking about 2023.
I'm going to go and get a bar of chocolate, I think, mate.
Madam Mayor, Britain
Mr. Five
led on
Samosa.
the industrial revolution.
I'll be back.
We were
You
the
guys
world
might want a
leaders
break as well,
when it came
because
to
this is
industrial
a
revolution.
load of bollocks.
That industrial revolution brought prosperity to Britain, Europe, and the rest of the world. But it also added to the environmental disaster. Because we benefited the most, we should contribute the most to the environment saving scheme as well. But I doubt if that will happen. We will just move some money from overseas aid budget to the environmental budget, and we will say that's our contribution to this 100 billion. Madam Mayor, earlier today, a display was put up in Piccadilly Circus in London with Queen's portrait. And next to her, there were her words. She said, "The time for words have now moved to time for action." That's Her Majesty the Queen. I hope our government listens to her and do something about it. Unfortunately, the track record to date doesn't speak much.
Councillor Ahmed, you have had your 4 minutes.
Madam Mayor, the resolution is a plea to avert disaster and save the planet for our next generations. I move. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Gloucester to move and Councillor Hamlet to second the amendment. Councillor Gloucester, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I appreciate we're short of time, so I am going to actually précis what I was going to say. But
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I make no apologies for the Liberal Democrat amendment to the administration's motion, which is well written and balanced, and I may add, wholly supported by the Liberal Democrat group on the council. Let's not forget it was the Liberal Democrats who brought a motion to this council to declare a climate emergency, resulting in the council adopting a new green plan for the borough. And our budget amendment proposals always feature something to make Oldham cleaner and greener. I share the disappointment of my colleague, Councillor JABBAR, in relation to the Town Centre Heat Fund, but it's certainly something that we as Liberal Democrats are not willing to let go so easily. Certainly I know Howard mentioned years and years ago in relation to ground source heat, the wealth of disused coal mines we've got across the borough, so it's something that we do actually need to tap into. I've just highlighted one thing in this speech that I think is really important for me to say, and that is, as a council, we need to act now to protect the future, not in the future to put right what we know we should have done in the past. I was going to go on about the mayoral car, which was quite long, but what I'll just say is, I know it's an hybrid, but we still haven't got an electric charging point next to that car. So in the future, are we going to plan for the future now and put one there, or are we going to run round like headless chickens in the future when we think it's actually a good idea to get an all-electric one? And the same applies to lots and lots of other things. I'm sorry it's a shopping list, but it's a shopping list of ideas that we feel are important, and I'm glad ABDUL seems to think so. What I'm really disappointed at is that he doesn't accept the points in relation to reducing, to introduce 20-mile-an-hour zones to reduce vehicle speeds. Well, we're already doing that. We've done it for COVID, so I can't really see what the issue is there. But in relation to the planning bit, and for the benefit of people, I'll just read what it actually says. And it's to establish new planning guidance under the local plan, requiring developers to achieve higher standards of insulation, take account of the impact of heat waves and flooding, provide for greater in-situ self-generation of power and heat through renewable technologies, and make provision for on-site electric vehicle charging points. Well, if that's not something that they should be doing, looking for the future, then it does quite worry me. Now, I hope in his right of reply, Councillor JABBAR will respond to that. But that is our amendment, and I would ask you to support it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hamlet to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am supporting the amendment, and it's a practical one, in our opinion. In recent times, the World Health Organization estimates that between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 deaths, additional deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress because of such dramatic weather changes and spiking level pollutions. The Director General of the World Health Organization recently said that COVID-19 pandemic has shone a light on the intimate and delicate links between humans, animals, and our environment. And that has shown exactly how that has come about. Particularly in 2020, carbon emissions dropped dramatically during the lockdown period, and while that humanity was struggling with the pandemic, nature itself started to recover, showing that we do have the ability to do things differently and promote a green recovery. And during COP26, Sir David Attenborough himself said that if working apart we're a force powerful enough to destabilise our planet, then surely working together we are powerful enough to save it. That, Madam Mayor, is why we must work together here and now, with our local businesses, with our fellow parish councils and other local partners to ensure that borough-wide we can be vibrant, clean, green and successful so that we build back greener with all the proposals in full. I do ask that this amendment is supported in its entirety. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hamblett. There's great discussion going on about timings here because we are virtually at the end of the extension time now as well. So I'm afraid I can't take any speakers on the amendment, so we will move to the vote. So those in favour of the amendment, please show.
Sorry, I had myself on mute whilst I was... I had myself on mute whilst the vote's going on, so I'll do this. I had myself on mute because I was eating my chocolate.
Abstentions?
I didn't want you to hear me. What's really disappointing here?
Councillor...
What's really disappointing here
gone
is
ahead
the
of
complete
myself.
silence
Councillor
from the
JABBAR, you
Conservatives.
should have had right of reply.
Many of them
We've
represent
got 3
Saddleworth,
minutes
lots
left,
of green spaces at
Okay,
risk.
I'll be very quick, Madam
And they
Mayor.
should be
Obviously,
speaking up and doing an
there's a
amendment
number of good points been
themselves.
made about
They
all
should
this,
be
and I
doing an
agree with that.
amendment
Just in
and
terms of
speaking up against what's took place.
amendment,
Instead,
Madam
it's like
Mayor,
they've not even read the
the
minutes.
20 mile
It's like they've not
per
even
hour
read the
zone
motion. It's like
that
they're not even
the
interested.
opposition asked for.
It's like
But
they
we're
are
already
not
doing
even
that,
interested.
and you know, whenever we have additional funds, then we will make sure
unbelievable.
that where
It's
it's
like they're not even
possible, then
interested.
we continue to roll out
The Conservatives should have
20 mile per hour zones
pointed
throughout
out
the
the
borough. What we
contradictions
can't accept,
and held
Madam Mayor, is a blanket
the Labour Party
acceptance
motion
of
to account.
doing this
They should
without
have
the funds being there.
pointed out
So that's the reason.
toxic tower.
And as I said in my opening speech, I do appreciate the support the Lib
And they've done
Dem
nothing in
give
this
on this,
meeting.
and particularly
In this
their
council
contribution
meeting, they've been
at the
genuinely
cross-party
genuine.
group.
And I get no
So once
satisfaction
again,
with
thank you
this.
for that. In relation to
But they've been
planning,
awful.
it's not simple
You
in
can
the
see
way
now
they've
this is
said
the
it.
second
There
and
is
the
a
third
particular
meeting we've done
things
it
that
like
you
this.
have to do, and I've been told
The
by
Lib
the
Dems
cabinet
come
member
organised.
it's not possible to do it
The
in
Lib
the way
Dems
that's
come
been
organised.
written in the motion. So that's why another reason
It
why
was.
we're refusing
The
that.
Lib Dems
But we're
come
happy
organised.
to talk on this, those two issues
And,
with colleagues from Lib Dems and find
do
a
what
way
they do.
forward. What is clear
The
from our
independents
side
haven't
and
got
your
a clue.
side
I think
is
that's
that we
pretty much
passionately
obvious.
care about this issue.
And at some point,
because it
they've
just,
got to get their act
you
together
know,
and
it's the
understand
future
how
of
this game
humanity
is played.
going forward. And we want to do our
Otherwise,
bit
they'll
to
just
make
get
sure we protect
called out on the
the
doorsteps
environment
of
for the
Belfast.
future generation. Thank you,
Conservatives,
Madam Mayor.
They know
Thank
better.
you. Councillor
Why are they
Gloucester,
sat
do you wish to
silent?
reply?
Why are they sat silent? Sorry, I'm
No,
ignoring
I
the
think
process of
we've
voting
reached a
climate change. I don't
consensus,
mean it
Madam
as
Mayor, and I
it's
thank
how it
Abdul
came,
for
but like
his
if
kind
Oldham Council voting on
ish
climate
comment.
change is going to make any difference whatsoever.
So, vote on the amendment.
Go to the vote.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Yeah, so now we go to the vote on the amendment. Apologies.
Oh, they voted. So it's all right. They're carrying on
so does
voting on the amendment. She's
council
got it
agree
wrong
the
as usual.
amendment?
So she's not done what she's meant to do. She has no idea what she's doing. Which is unusual.
Clarification, Madam Mayor. For Madam Mayor.
Those.
You've just seen council
Sorry,
play out. You've just seen this play out.
The
It's been, what,
substantive
2 hours?
motion, those four.
3 hours, 2 hours,
The
3 hours,
original
nearly 3
motion
hours.
as
And you're
proposed.
losing the will
Those
to
in
live. All
favour,
of this
please
is
show.
intentional.
Against?
All of this is intentional.
Any abstentions?
And its purpose is to turn you off so fewer and fewer
Okay,
people vote,
so
fewer and
that
fewer people take an
motion
interest.
is
You all think
carried.
it's a waste of
Thank
time.
you.
And the consequence is
We
elect
now move
leaders
to
like this.
notice of
We elect
opposition business,
politicians like this.
which again we have 30
How can
minutes.
you? How can you?
And I call on Councillor
We've
Murphy
got
to
to
move
vote them out.
and Councillor
This isn't
Gloucester
how
to second the motion.
democracy
Councillor
in
Murphy,
action
please.
should be.
Thank you, Madam
Don't
Mayor.
for 1 minute think what you're seeing
The Liberal
in front of you
Democrats are
is how
calling
it was
for the
designed
UK
to be.
government to do
It
more to
wasn't.
improve the water quality
It
of
wasn't
Britain's
designed.
rivers
Sorry, I've
as
got
one of
a piece
their
of paper.
commitments
I've got
at
a
the
Kit Kat
upcoming
for people asking what
COP26
I've got
climate
on.
change conference in
This wasn't how
Glasgow.
it was designed.
We are highlighting the urgent need for action after discovering that the borough's watercourses all failed recent tests for chemical pollution carried out by the Environment Agency, and that the rivers Irk and Tame are under threat. It's shocking that in 2019, only 14% of England's rivers were rated good by the Environment Agency, despite Conservative government promises to improve the quality of watercourses over time.
Poorer water quality has an adverse impact upon the aquatic, bird and insect life that inhabits our watercourses and for the people who visit them for their recreational purposes. The damage is caused by runoffs from nutrients from farms and raw sewerage discharge. Water companies and the rivers Irk and Tame are being cited as being particularly in danger. But government funding to enable the Environment Agency to monitor and check these activities has been cut by 75% in the last decade. Not only do we want the Environment Agency's budget to be restored to enable it to be effectively identify and prosecute offenders, but we want the National Farmers Union and United Utilities to account for their actions of those members and employees who engage in polluting activities and tell us what they are doing to make things right. The COP26 conference in Glasgow will focus on the world's attention on what the UK is doing or is pledging to do to address climate change and the impact of mankind's activities on the natural world. As one of those commitments, we want the UK government to clean up Britain's rivers so we can all continue to enjoy them. And I ask members to support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Hazel Gloucester, please, to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With COP26 starting this week in the UK, it is absolutely disgusting that as leaders from across the world meet to discuss climate change, 100% of our rivers are polluted. As Councillor Murphy has already said,
again, you can see I'm not disputing.
With over 200,000 kilometres of rivers across the UK, they are the lifeline of biodiversity.
None of us are.
Unfortunately, though, the contamination contained within poisons a massive percentage of the wildlife they should support on a daily basis.
And
the
lobby
discharge of
government,
sewage
which
and all it
isn't
contains,
taking up time
farming
in a council
effluent,
meeting.
plastic, rubber and many other items disposed of in our rivers
Gesture
is beyond
politics.
any viable control.
It's like someone's
I
spoken
have
for 5
personally
minutes, I need to
tested the
speak for
water
6 minutes.
at the source of
Someone
the River
else
Beal for another reason, and it
needs
is
to speak for 10
absolutely
minutes.
crystal clear.
This is
However,
just
when tested officially by the
poor
Environment Agency, not too far away
waste.
from its source,
You pay for this.
every one of our
You
local
pay these
rivers,
people.
including the
You
Beal,
pay
failed.
for this. Did you know,
Walk
by the
along
way,
any riverside and you can clearly
the,
see and smell
those
the
who
issues.
endure this.
But
Did
there
you
is
know
also
that
another
prior to the council
biodiversity
meeting,
disaster
so this lot have been whinging
occurring,
and
which we don't
whinging
necessarily
about government
see
cuts,
or
yeah?
even
They've been
living where we do
whinging
hear
about
about.
universal credit.
As we all know,
Were you
planet
aware
Earth is round. I know that
this
some
lot
people
have
do
a
dispute
lavish
this,
meal
but I am happy with the
paid for
evidence.
by you
We
prior
also
to the council
know
meeting
all
starting?
rivers meet the sea.
Were you aware
The
of
disaster
that?
I speak about
These
is the
councillors who
loss
are already
of
on
seagrass.
massive salaries or
Seagrasses,
expenses,
of which there are over
before
60
they sit down in their
species,
council
offer natural
meetings,
carbon storage solution.
have a meal,
And it
a
actually
lavish meal
captures
paid for by
carbon at a rate 30 times
You won't, will you?
faster than rainforests. As such,
Seriously?
it is one of our most important defences against climate change. And over recent
do as we
years,
say, not as we
seagrass
do.
meadows have declined by 92%. One of the biggest contributory factors is
And
pollution.
she's reading again and she, I don't know what she's
It
saying.
is a photosynthetic species
Oh,
and
God,
requires
here you go.
sunlight
She
to
knows so
survive.
much about it, she's
The
had to
issue
write it
first
down, and
is the
someone has to write it
repeated
down for her.
and regular algae blooms which stop the sunlight reaching the plants.
It wouldn't surprise me, Denise.
With our
It
with our
wouldn't
enforcement
surprise me.
agencies losing 75% of their funding, how on
No,
earth
would
do we
that
expect
surprise
to
me?
rectify yet another man-made disaster? This Conservative government recently voted against a suggested amendment from the Lords to the Environment Bill, which would have forced water companies and the government to demonstrate progressive reductions in the discharge of untreated sewage into our rivers. It is a tragedy that ministers said the change was not required, as safeguards are already in place. If this is the case, and let's just remember, at this moment in time, 100% of our rivers are polluted. We have absolutely no
People of
hope of tackling
Royton
our
South,
climate emergency.
you have a
And
chance
from
to
their
get rid of this woman, I
actions, it is
think.
clear that this government
Is
does
she
not
up?
even
No, it's the
care
Bastard
about the
up, isn't she?
emergency,
It's not. This is the Gloucester
our
double act, isn't
children,
it?
or their children.
I can't keep
Please
up with the
support
husband
this
and wife
motion
teams.
and show that those of you in this room do actually care. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gloucester. Does any member wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Jabbar.
Madam Mayor, given we've got 4 motion in this section, we're happy to support this motion for the reasons that's been outlined by the previous 2 speakers, if that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Oh, is she up in Shaw? She won't get taken out, will she?
So,
Let's be honest.
Councillor Murphy, you have right to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to thank the members for supporting
Oh,
us.
she's dropped a piece of paper. She's using her feet to try and get it.
Thank you very much. Does Council agree the motion? Those for, those in favour?
Oh, I wish, Lynn.
Thank you.
They
Those
have as many
against?
minutes as they want when it
Any
suits them, doesn't it, Lynn?
abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Motion 2, I call on Councillor Lancaster to move and Councillor Woodvine to second the motion. Councillor Lancaster, please.
Oh, the Tories are here. The Conservatives are here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oldham has long been known and understandably marketed as the gateway to the Pennines. The South Pennines takes in some of the most stunning scenery of both the Red and White Rose counties, and the inclusion of many of our borough's beauty spots across Saddleworth, Moorside and Crompton Moor undoubtedly awards greater value to the region. All councillors here will be conscious of the need to protect our landscapes, a cause which has only grown in importance over the course of the last 18 months, as people have come to appreciate the countryside more, and of course with our ever-changing climate. In that vein, I hope we can all join with the very many conservation organisations in welcoming the national target to protect 30% of our land by 2030, an ambition now shared internationally across the G7 following the summit held in Cornwall a few months ago. The South Pennines can and ought to be at the heart of our national strategy to reach this target, and indeed, had history happened slightly differently, we wouldn't now even need to be advancing this argument. The region was first considered by the original Hobhouse Committee of the 1940s, and a determination was only made against national park designation at that time due to the remaining working mills belching smoke out into the valley bottoms, a picture which couldn't be painted by reality today. National park designation would confer many benefits, environmental, economic and social. The example of the existing 10 national parks in England demonstrate that, through higher status and support, projects of greater effect can be progressed for the long term.
So he wants
These
national
projects
park
could include
status.
those which have sustained healthy soils.
So you could have said this in two minutes, but I agree with him. He wants national
and those
park
which
status.
have preserved ecological diversity.
National park status
so we
will
can all
attract
enjoy
more money,
a greater wealth of wildlife.
and it will also
From an economic
safeguard.
perspective, national parks attract many visitors from far and wide to stimulate their respective local economies. But we know that the associated infrastructure in the form of information centres promotes more responsible and sustainable tourism as well. Lastly, looking at the social angle, Fiona Reynolds, former Director General of the National Trust, reflected on the national park promise of the then Labour Minister, first tasked with implementing them, as being, quote, to renew a stressed nation and improve the well-being of its citizens, end quote. Though we are not in the post-war years, we are, I think, a stressed nation and in much need of improved well-being. I would greatly appreciate your support in passing this motion tonight and in leading our borough to be part of something really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Woodvine to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to begin by thanking Councillor Lancaster for his work and research into this matter, plus his passion for protecting some of the most special parts of our borough, especially Saddleworth, which has famously been known as the jewel in Oldham's crown. Our borough can consider itself very lucky to contain the civil parish of Saddleworth, but this proposal will also include Crompton and parts of central Oldham like Moorside, places which are often overshadowed but are distinct in their own ways. A national park for the South Pennines would strengthen our borough's historic, cultural and societal links to local authorities in both the Red and White Rose counties, giving Oldham a much stronger voice on the northern but also national stage. The South Pennines has suitability for National Park designation and featured in the very first list of proposed national parks by Sir Arthur Hobhouse in 1949.
Listen, lads, we don't need a bloody history lesson. Just get on with it. We agree with it. National park status. This isn't some debating society at Hume. Come on.
Falling within the South Pennines region. And almost all of the moorland area is designated as sites of special scientific interest due to its importance to bird life. In principle and practice, national park legislation and its concept, that is to say the protection of beauty such as that in our borough, plus the provision of access to the countryside, possesses great, if not greater relevance today than it did in those post-war years. Unfortunately, the South Pennines, unlike many upland areas in England, lack a sufficient protection framework and remain the only upland area without any. But the most important point is that the South Pennines National Park would create a spine of protected land through England, linking up the Yorkshire Dales with the Peak District. Therefore, I hope councillors will support this proposal and allow Oldham to pave the way for a national park and the borough to become part of this backbone of Britain. Thank you.
Thank you. Permission has been sought from the Chief Executive to change the seconder of the amendment, and it has been agreed. Therefore, I call on Councillor McLaren to move and Councillor Roberts to second the amendment. Councillor McLaren, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to move the amendment which suggests that there is a need to engage with the Peak District National Park Authority in order to seek their advice and support for either the creation of a new national park or perhaps seek an extension of the national park boundary.
Okay.
It is worth noting that the Peak Park continues to promote vital peatlands restoration work in the Dark Peak and South Pennines through its internationally recognised Moors for the Future project in partnership with water companies, including Yorkshire Water, with an estimated 7.2 million committed so far for the period 2020 to 2024. The Peak Park continues to maximise greater investment in the landscape despite the loss of some European funding.
I don't know.
This programme helps to address climate change, ensure a future for farming and land management, support conservation, encourages thriving and sustainable communities,
when I have no say
to
in any restaurant that I go to, other than and my friends have been to these restaurants.
Despite worldwide recognition, the National Park has suffered a reduction in its core funding from DEFRA, which forced a restructuring of its senior management team, thus undermining its ability to maintain and enhance this invaluable programme. One response to this setback was to create the Peak District National Park Foundation as a registered charity to seek support through the grant system and other partners to fund the non-statutory aspects of the National Park's corporate strategy and management plan. 2 officers have been seconded by the authority and are working 2 days a week. So far, this has proved to be very successful. The Glover report set out to demonstrate how the programme for maintaining the special qualities of all national parks might be enhanced. Unfortunately, central government seems to be preparing to utilise the report as a means of centralising some aspects of national park management, which would undermine local accountability. A further reduction of the block grant to individual national parks, which remains a vital means of ensuring that such places remain accessible and enjoyable spaces for everyone. Given the present financial climate, this may not be the best time to campaign for a creation of an additional national park, but there may be scope for preparing the way for such a step in the future by working with the Peak Park and other potential
He wouldn't
partners.
know what a national park is, Jack.
Thank you. Calling Councillor Roberts to second the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In seconding the amendment to the motion, I would like to draw councillors' attention to something that I came across recently. I note that the National Statistics, the National Statistics Local Authority Greenbelt Statistics for England 2020 to 21, published in September, states, England has a land area of just under 13,046,240 hectares, of which about 8% is developed use. When including land designated as Greenbelt, just over 37% of the area of England, 4.9 million hectares, is protected against development by one or more environmentally protected designations. In setting a target of 30%, I do hope the Prime Minister misspoke and does not actually intend to reduce protected land by 7 percentage points, or nearly 20% of the current total.
So they can avoid
Thank you.
the issues that we, the people of the town, genuinely care about.
Does any member wish to speak on the
She's up in
amendment?
Royton North. Get rid of her. She's up in Royton North.
Okay.
Vote her out.
So,
she's not your grandma.
there's not
In
really
fact, she's the
anything to
sort of
reply
woman your
to,
grandma would
Councillor
probably warn
Lancaster,
you
but
to stay
would you
away
like
from.
to make a closing
Get
remark?
rid of them. Vote them out.
Appear not to be working. I'd just like to thank Councillors McLaren and Councillor Roberts for their contributions and for engaging proactively with the content of this motion. I think certain benefits of the Peak District National Park... Thank you. I think I've resumed control of the mic. Yeah, thank you for elaborating some of the benefits of the Peak District National Park. And in the spirit of cooperation, I'd be happy to accept the amendment to this motion. Thank you.
Councillor McLaren, do you wish to add any remarks?
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor, and would ask the Council to support the amendment and the original motion and the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions?
Does anyone even remember what they were voting on?
Is agreed. So it is carried. Does any member wish to speak on the motion as amended? No hands showing. Councillor Lancaster, anything else to add?
Please, no.
So does Council agree the motion as amended? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? So the motion as amended is carried. Thank you.
So they want to apply.
Motion 3,
so all of
and
that
in the interest of fairness, the opposition parties would have the opportunity to call for an extension if they felt it necessary. I think we've got about 10 minutes left in this section. So, motion 3.
Can I call for an extension then on your invitation, Madam Mayor, for 15 minutes like there was on the administration business?
Oh, Lord.
Seconder.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Those in favour of an extension to this of 15 minutes, please show those in favour.
You know what? I'm going to leave
against?
this playing whilst I go and nibble on some of my last night's pizza.
We agreed to have that if needed. Thank you. Calling Councillor Al-Hamdani to move and Councillor Chris Gloucester to second the motion.
Do you see what they're doing here? They're stifling democracy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the motion.
This is all intentional.
I could go into the details of statistics on this, but I'd rather talk about some of the experiences of people in my ward who have had to deal with this. And this has happened on too many occasions and too often and too recently. The first is, won't use names, but a lady who contacted myself over issues that have been going on for several years. And one of the first things that she said was, I'm scared. I'm scared every time it starts to rain again. I'm scared that I'm going to get flooded again. I'm scared that it's just happening. I'm scared that it's going to just ruin my house again. And that's fairly typical of people's experiences when this is happening to them. I'm currently dealing with a case where there's a series of houses that are being flooded. One of the residents, after over 10 years of being flooded repeatedly, gave up, moved out, sold their house for a pittance and moved overseas because they didn't feel that they had any other choice, because nothing seemed to be happening. They didn't seem to be getting any support. They didn't seem to be getting any help that they needed to prevent their house being flooded again. And the couple who have bought the house spent £15,000 on renovating it to get it into a good condition, and they got flooded again. And 3 feet deep from half an hour's worth of rain. That's frightening. I don't know how many members here have looked into the grants that are available on flooding. There's a £5,000 grant available once, but only after the flood happens. And even after the flood happens, you only get access to it if there have been sufficient houses flooded in your area for the government to designate that area of sufficient risk to get the grant. So that means if you just happen to be one of the poor, unfortunate people who get flooded again and again, but you aren't in one of those areas, there's no help for you. So this is a simple motion which says that we should be providing protection in advance. The grants that are currently available, if you are lucky enough to be in one of those areas, they've extended the time that you can get them for another, just over another month. But then that's it, it's gone. Yet you will know that your house is going to flood. You just happen not to be in one of those areas. That must change. And it's prevention rather than cure. If I go back to the lady who I talked about in the first instance, it has happened again and again. And so I have ended up in a gully at midnight trying to clear the debris so that it didn't flood. And to be fair to the officers of this council, they've been there as well trying to do the same. They go out, if there's a storm after midnight, they're there checking that the flooding is not going to happen again. But what we need is prevention, prevention, not cure. We need to be supporting people before these are problems, and this is what this motion calls for. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Gloucester to second, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I too, I suppose, really am just going to tell you a tale of casework that I've dealt with and what goes on in Shaw in particular in relation to flooding. But whenever we have particularly heavy rain, we've got several areas in Shaw that are at great flooding risk, and that's around Jubilee Bends at Milnrow, Smallbrook at Shaw, where we've had actual houses flooded out, and we've had to do an awful lot of work to stop those houses getting flooded every time it does rain heavily. When it does rain heavily, Dunwood Park Bowling Green becomes Dunwood Park Lake because it completely fills. And closer to where I live, Cheetham Street in Shaw is where I've seen the deepest flooding that I've dealt with. Where in relation to what this motion proposes, which is funding to assist homeowners and businesses to know the flood risk and to be able to do something to make sure that they've got better resilience to prevent flooding, or if flooding occurs, to not be in a position where the property is unlivable for months and months, then it's a great thing. So I would ask that we do support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was sat on the beach the other day in Greece, and I got this WhatsApp message from one of our parish councillors in Greenfield, and it showed water flowing down the hillside right in front of our pub in Greenfield and on down to the cricket field where it flooded the cricket field. Didn't matter too much because that cleared quite quickly. But most of the problems, and it tends to be this time of year when the weather turns, is that the grids are completely full of leaves. So I got hold of our environment team and asked them to come and have a look. This one particular lady that was concerned that if it was heavy rain, she wasn't leaving her house for fear that the floodwater came into her garden, but she was frightened it was going to come into the front door. So the team actually came out to Greenfield with a gully clearer, and the chappie in charge, and I won't name names, it's not fair to do that, but he said we've got so many thousand gullies, grids in Oldham, and we've got one vehicle to tackle it all, and it's simply not enough. And until we get another one, I said, well, surely we can hire one at this time of year for a few weeks. We don't need to buy one or rent two all the time. And he said, well, we really need to look at it. And what I said to him, I said, the grid's here, and the one down the road and the one further on, they're all blocked. And what is happening, the pipework in between the grids is all becoming silted up. So it doesn't just become a matter of emptying that one grid or the one further up the road. They've got to clear all the pipework that joins all the grids together. So it becomes a major task and a major cost. So I do support this motion, but we really need to think about the way we spend our money at this council and get people on the ground, get the grids flowing and all the gullies cleared so that we don't force the problem on ourselves. We can't do anything about global warming, or we hope that Boris Johnson and the team can do up in Scotland there. But when we get adverse weather, we know that sometimes we're going to get a flood, but we certainly can do a lot to help residents having floodwater come into their homes. So I do support this motion, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. I've had nobody else show. So, Councillor Al-Hamdani, you have right to reply.
Thank you. Thank you for the contribution. I hope that was a slip of the tongue saying we can't do anything about climate change. I just hope everybody is in support of the motion and taking it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So does Council agree the motion? Those in favour, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. So, because you voted for an extension, we can move to motion 4. Permission has been sought from the Chief Executive to change the mover of this amendment, and it has been agreed. Therefore, I call on Councillor Sharp to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the motion. Councillor Sharp, please.
Madam Mayor, can I just say something, please? We know we're short of time this evening and we've got a lot on the agenda, and we would like to move this straight to the vote if that's possible.
Yeah, we can move it and second it and go straight to the vote if you wish.
Yeah.
That's fine, because there's no amendment for this one, is there? So, yeah, so if you would just like to formally move, Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, move the motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon.
And if I could second it, thank you.
Thank you. So there's no right to reply because there's been no, unless there's anything you'd just like to, a comment you'd like to make.
Madam Mayor, point of order, do you not need to put a proposal that it's put to the vote and then we decide whether we want to vote on it or debate? Because some of us might want to say something on this or not.
Okay, yep, sorry. Accept that point of order. Thank you. Yeah, so does anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor Sarge.
So, Madam Mayor, it's been moved and seconded that you go straight to the vote. That's what you now vote on. Is that accepted by Council, that you now go straight to the vote on this motion? If that's rejected, you then open it up for debate. So is that accepted? Yes. It now goes straight to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Right, so we go to the vote on this motion.
Wow, so the Chief Executive is intervening. The Council Chief Executive is intervening because the Mayor has no idea of how to behave in the meeting.
Any abstentions?
Wow. Wow.
So that motion is lost. Thank you. Item 13, COVID response update. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Chowan to second the report. Councillor Shah, please.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Chowan.
Madam Mayor, due to the time constraints, and I'm mindful that we had a long evening, I will just second it without going too much into details. I anticipate that members have read the report in detail.
Yeah, I have had indication of notice of questions. So I believe that you're going to answer the questions.
Madam Mayor, we have two options. I'm quite happy to talk through those answers, or I can provide them answers in writing. It's up to the chamber.
Yeah, well, I think
I got all night, Madam Mayor. It's up to the chamber.
Madam, can we move to have them receive them in writing, if that's okay?
I second it.
So we're moving to receive them in writing, if that's okay.
I second it.
It's been proposed and seconded that the questions be submitted in writing and they will be answered. Those in favour of that proposal? Anyone against? Any abstentions? It looked to me that is carried. So those questions will receive written answers. Thank you. So does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Do we agree?
Agreed, Madam Mayor.
This is to note, Madam Mayor, yeah.
Move, Madam Mayor.
In his absence, move, Madam Mayor.
If I leave it on, it just knocks itself off, and then I... Does any member wish to speak on the updates? No, so there's nothing to reply to, so does Council agree the
doesn't matter.
recommendations
All the rest of that
detailed within the report?
Agreed,
Madam
Mayor.
Willy waving, can I? But you know what I mean.
Item 15,
but COVID doesn't
District
matter.
Leads. I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Shah to second the report. All members have an interest in this item and a dispensation has been granted. So, Councillor Chatterton to move, please.
Move, Madam Mayor, and just if it's okay, just for a point of clarification about the process around this. So we had 6 districts and we're moving into 5 clusters. There'll be 5 leads in each of those clusters. Following meetings between myself and officers and members from those clusters, it was asked by members in the North cluster and the East cluster for those to have a deputy. Those deputies would oversee
Sorry,
in the
you
north,
guys need to listen to this bit. You really do. This is the important bit. They've dragged it to the end.
There was an argument that there were 2 distinct communities.
What is now taking place is a power grab and a massive pay rise
and the
for
same
a
with
whole host of councillors. That is now what is taking place.
That was fine by me as lead member. If that's what people wanted, that's what people wanted.
Jack, this
so
bit
those
at the
2
end,
areas will have a
you
deputy.
need to listen to it.
As a ruling group, we have put forward 5 leads for each of the clusters. We have not put forward a deputy for the North or for the East. We accept a proposal from the Conservative group that Pam Byrne becomes the deputy in the East, which is fine. I understand the Liberal Democrats have put forward a proposal that Diane Williamson becomes the lead in North. Obviously, as the ruling group, we've put our own nomination forward. We're happy to accept Diane Williamson as the deputy in the North that will oversee Shaw and Crompton. It is obviously at the disposal of the Liberal Democrat group if they'd like to take that to a vote over Diane becoming lead or deputy or not. That is the proposal as we put it forward.
Thank you. So, will you second that, Councillor?
Yeah, second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So I have had advance nominations, and nominations will be by a simple majority. There wasn't anything on here for debate, Councillor Woodfine, on this. We'll be going to each of the districts, looking at the nominations, and it will be by simple majority. Okay. So for Central Lead, the nomination is Councillor Salamat. Is that agreed?
Agreed, Madam Mayor.
North Lead, the first nomination
you
is
have no idea what's going on, do you?
Stephen Bashford.
You have absolutely no idea of what's going on.
Those four.
Do you? You have no idea what's going on.
The second
this is on
nomination
purpose. This is intentional.
Councillor
They're carving up the town with Labour Party councillors in charge. That's what they mean by districts.
The third nomination
honestly, you have no idea. This is a massive power grab. It's absolutely outrageous. The way they've decided why 5 districts are created is to force a Labour majority on all of them. Again, you have been led to a place of complete dejection with all the rest of the crap, and you get to this bit, it's all on purpose. All on purpose.
Yeah, we've had 3 nominations for North, and it's by just simple majority, the number of votes that each of the nominees receives. So
by simple majority, really so everyone votes on all of the areas.
Please.
Labour have 40 councillors, so Labour will get their way on all of the areas. Can you see that?
So,
Labour will get their say
so
on all of the areas because all of them vote on who leads each of these district committees. The district committee chairs all receive, I'm not sure if it's £6,000 or £10,000 each. And the way they've carved the 5 district committees up is that they've put Labour cartels into as many of them as possible. And I'm not joking.
And the third nomination is
towards the end on purpose,
Arnott.
so you get dejected.
So Councillor Steve Bashford is the lead for the North District.
Barrelgate. Barrelgate.
The North Deputy, the nomination I've received is for Councillor Williamson. Is that agreed? The East Lead, the first nomination I've received is Councillor Cosgrove. Those 4. Councillor Cosgrove.
Councillor Cosgrove has hardly ever uttered a word ever in a council meeting. She's a Labour Party plant.
Withdrawn. So Councillor Cosgrove is the lead. East Deputy, I've had a nomination of Councillor Byrne.
I'll do a section on all of this.
So is Councillor Byrne agreed for...
Look at them all waving their hands.
East
the Conservatives have ceded Saddleworth
so
for Cosgrove, as long as Councillor Pam Burns gets to be deputy. Deputy is a waste of time.
So the South District, the first nomination is Councillor Davis. Those 4 for Councillor Davis. The second nomination is Councillor Abid. Those 4. So Councillor Davis wins the nomination. So Councillor Davis will be the South lead. So the West District, the nomination is Councillor Brownridge. Is that agreed? So Councillor Brownridge becomes the West lead. Thank you very much. Yeah, there are a few hands going up, but I'm not sure Is it a point of order or something?
See,
just for clarity, I mean, we've gone through the nominations now, but if this happens again in the future, if there are multiple people nominated for a position, could we please have a list of all of them before we start voting? Because otherwise we don't know what the vote is about.
That's something to bring forward.
No, it's not something to bring forward. It's not something to bring forward. It should be something that should be done now. It's disgraceful. This is a power grab by Jenny, whatever her name is, AROOJ Shah and the Cartels all across Oldham. What is taking place here is out of order and it is disgraceful. Out of order, disgraceful, massive power grab by the Labour Party.
So, Councillor Shah, do you wish to comment? You have a right to reply on this. Oh, sorry, Councillor Chatterton.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just say congratulations to everybody that's a lead and a deputy in their areas.
Thank you. So does Council agree the recommendations in the report?
They should vote against it. Every opposition should vote against it. But watch,
Item 16 of the scrutiny annual report.
They've just been shafted, and they have no idea they've just been shafted.
Councillor Akhtar to second the report. Councillor McLaren.
They've been shafted and they have no understanding they've been shafted. The Fails of Independence have just been shafted, they have no idea they've been shafted. The Conservatives have been shafted and they're happy to have Pam Bine as some sort of deputy. What has just took place is disgraceful, and the only person that objected to it in any meaningful way was once again Sam Al-Hamdani. Wow.
Councillor Akhtar to second.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to add anything else? Thank you. Will you stop speaking for everybody else, please, Councillor Mushtaq? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? Thank you. Item 17, organisational framework. I call on Councillor Shah to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the report. Councillor Shah, please.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldon.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to add anything?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, and that concludes the business for tonight.
Okay. Let me turn that off. You have no idea what just happened there, do you? You have no idea what just happened there. It's a classical technique in politics. You bore the shit out of people, and then you leave the important business you want to rush through until the end, and you bully your way through it, and you do it so quickly no one realises what's took place. And unfortunately, the opposition councillors don't understand it well enough, apart from Sam Al-Hamdani, to give him his due. And what's happened is 6 districts have become 5. They've appointed a district lead in all of them. Instead of the districts themselves, the councillors in the districts themselves voting, everyone gets to vote on who becomes in charge. And when everyone votes on who's in charge of the local districts, the Labour Party 40 councillors hold sway. So they just imposed their own leaders across the entire town with delegated powers and a hefty pay rise. That's what's just took place. And we've missed it. And even the councillors in there missed it. And to my friend, and I use the term, my friend Brian Hobin, this is what happens when you get in bed with AROOJ Shah. She plays you. She's smarter than you. She's more conniving than you. And the Fails of Independence have just been shafted because they're not in charge of Failsworth, because Failsworth has added not just to Hollingwood, but it was added to Medlock Vale. That's copies. What the F has Failsworth got in common with Medlock Vale? Now, you know why Medlock was added to it, don't you? And they've done that across the town. And it's exactly that, Sally. And blink and you've missed it. And blink and you've missed it. Did you see how quickly they went? Bang, 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 bang. Done. Ruthless. And that is why we need a better calibre of politicians in there. And that is why we need the politicians in there who we've put there to educate themselves and get up to speed. And I have offered my services consistently to these people. But unfortunately, now they're in, they think they've got to play the game and somehow I'm a pariah. And AROOJ SHAH and her mates will take care of them. Well, you got took care of all right tonight, didn't you, lads? You got really took care of. My name is Raja Amir. This was a Recusant 9. God knows what it was. It was a council meeting, but you saw it play out right at the end. Please, if you find my insights of value, support the channel, buy me a coffee, subscribe, or at the very least subscribe to this. We've had 409 people join us tonight over the course of the evening with an average view time of 30 minutes. So people are interested. But we need to educate the people of this town so they can see what goes on and they can see how to stop it. And yes, will you decide for yourselves what value I bring? A very good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.